On the night of the Lantern Festival, my elder sister Gu Lanqing stood by the railing of the moon-gazing pavilion, draped in a silver-red cloak, the lights of half the capital fading into her backdrop. Xia Linchuan, the heir of the Mingyuan Marquisate, who had once been betrothed to me, shattered the jade cup in his hand with a sharp crack. The shards cut into his tiger's mouth, blood seeping out, yet he seemed utterly oblivious. His gaze was pinned to that silver-red figure, unable to look away. After the festival dispersed, the Xia family's marriage negotiations ceased without a word. The next morning, the Xia family sent over a letter of annulment, its wording polite and measured. Our son is unworthy, and we dare not delay your daughter's prime. After reading the letter, my mother clutched the paper and stood under the eaves for a long time. The evening breeze stirred a few silver strands at her temples. When she turned to look at me, a trace of guilt flickered in her eyes. But her words came out as, Lanqing was fated by an old sage to have a short life, barely surviving past 16. Now she's finally reached 18, and that Xia boy has set his heart on her. Qingyi, let her have this. I looked down at the coral bracelet on my wrist. It was a gift Xia Linchuan had given me last festival, chosen by his own hand. The coral beads were perfectly uniform, and now they pressed against my wrist bone, carrying a faint chill. All right, I said. My mother let out a relieved sigh, patted my shoulder, and turned to arrange my elder sister's wedding. The next day, she slipped the coral bracelet off my wrist. Since this was a gift from the Xia boy, return it to him. Later, I'll find you something better. A day later, that coral bracelet was on my elder sister's wrist. She smiled at me, her eyes bright. Mother said since you rarely go out anyway, it would just gather dust in your room. So I borrowed it for a few days. She raised her wrist, turning it in the sunlight, the coral beads glowing warm and translucent. The quality of these beads is indeed excellent. No wonder Linchuan Gij was so meticulous in choosing them. I heard my own voice rise, flat as a bowl of water left to cool. If you like it, sister, then wear it. After all, I won't be needing it anymore. Yes. I had no need for this family anymore. 01 My name is Gu Qingyi, the second daughter of the Gu family. My elder sister, Gu Lanqing, is 3 years older than me and has been frail and sickly since childhood. The day she was born was stormy. When the midwife brought her out, her breath was faint, and the old physician shook his head after examining her. My mother knelt before the statue of Guanyin, making a solemn vow. If her daughter survived, she would willingly shorten her own life by 10 years. My elder sister survived. From then on, my mother treated her like a precious pearl, as if she would shatter at the slightest touch. As far back as I can remember, this family revolved around my elder sister. A single light cough from her, and the entire household held its breath. If her appetite was poor, the kitchen would prepare a variety of dishes. If she had restless dreams, my mother would burn calming incense in her courtyard and stay by her side all night. And me, I was tough, resilient, could eat anything and gain weight, and sleep soundly anywhere. My mother often said, Qingyi is much easier to care for than her sister. The words sounded like praise, but hearing them often enough, I understood. The child who is easy to care for doesn't need to be cherished. When I was 6, my maternal grandmother sent 2 bolts of cloud-patterned brocade from Jiangnan. One was moon-white with silver-threaded intertwined lotus patterns, the other lotus-root pink with embroidered twin-stemmed begonias. My mother gave the pink one to my elder sister and left the moon-white one for me. I hugged that moon-white brocade, overjoyed, hiding in my room to compare it again and again. Though it was plain, the silver threads caught the light, scattering a fine shimmer. The next day, my elder sister came to my room for a visit. She lounged on the couch, flipping through a casual book I'd left on the desk, then put it down after a few pages. As she left, she glanced at the brocade but said nothing about whether she liked it. Yet, not even the time it takes to burn a stick of incense had passed before my mother arrived. Qingyi, she said, standing at the door, holding a teacup, her tone half consulting, half commanding. Your sister says she wants that moon-white fabric for a cloak. Let her have it for now. Later, I'll get you something better. I folded the brocade and handed it to my mother. She took it, looked at my face, and added, "Your sister is frail. I'm sorry you have to bear this." I wasn't sorry. I told myself I wasn't sorry. I later saw my elder sister wear that brocade once. The moon-white backdrop made her face look even paler, as if she might dissolve into the snow at any moment. The maids all said, "The eldest young lady looks like a fairy from a painting in that color." I stood under the eaves, watched from a distance, and turned away. When I was 8, my father brought back a box of lychees from Lingnan. From Lingnan to the capital, even riding day and night without rest took half a month, kept cool with ice along the way. By the time it reached the mansion, only a dozen or so were still fresh. My father placed the box in the main hall, saying, "Share these between you 2 sisters." My mother divided them. 10 for my elder sister, 3 for me. The remaining 4 were sent to our grandmother. I stood under the eaves for a long time, holding my 3 lychees. My nails dug into the reddish-brown shells, and the sweet, sticky juice seeped out, covering my hands. I peeled and ate one. It was very sweet, so sweet it left a bitter taste at the root of my tongue. I couldn't bear to eat the other 2, so I wrapped them in a handkerchief and brought them back to my room, placing them by my pillow to savor their fragrance for days before slowly eating them. Later, one day, a young maid from my elder sister's courtyard came to say, "The eldest young lady craves lychees. Does the second young lady have any left from that box?" I said no. The maid returned to report, and my elder sister said nothing. But the next day, my mother came to my room, sat down, and said, "Chingy, your sister had a craving. Why didn't you spare her 2 lychees?" I said, "When you divided them, mother, sister got 10. And I got 3. My mother frowned. "But didn't you eat them yourself? What harm would it have done to share one with her?" I didn't argue anymore. After that day, whenever my father brought anything back, I didn't go to the main hall. Old Nurse Jo would collect my portion and bring it to my room. When I opened it, sometimes it was a plate of pastries, sometimes a half-used bolt of fabric. I kept them, saying nothing. When I was 10, I began learning to manage the household. No one taught me. I just watched a little more when my mother handled household affairs, silently memorizing the entries in the account books, ledgers, and lists. One time, my mother couldn't balance the accounts, and the household stewards shifted the blame back and forth, none willing to admit fault. I stood by for a moment, then couldn't help but speak up. "Mother, in the procurement list, the silver fungus expense this month is 3 taels more than last month. Kitchen Mama Lou says it's because eldest miss has been wanting rock sugar pear soup, so the usage of silver fungus has increased." Mother lifted her head and glanced at me. That glance held both surprise and inquiry. "How do you know that?" "I saw last month's procurement list." Mother said nothing more, but after that day, she occasionally asked me to help her check the accounts. Not often, only when she was too busy to manage on her own. Whenever that happened, eldest sister would coincidentally feel unwell, and mother would set down the account books to go check on her. One time, I had just flipped open the ledger halfway when old Nanny Zhao rushed in to report that eldest sister was having nightmares again. Mother stood up immediately and left, leaving the account books on the desk. I finished checking the remaining half of the ledger, noted down every discrepancy one by one, and tucked them under the paperweight at the corner of the desk. The next day, Mother flipped through it. She didn't praise me, just said, "Leave it there." But I knew she remembered. Later, I overheard half a sentence when she was talking to grandmother. "That child Chingy, she has a bit of a knack for managing a household." Grandmother must have replied something, but mother didn't continue. The thin layer of joy in my heart scattered like morning mist. 02 a year before my coming-of-age ceremony, mother began discussing my marriage. The one she had her eye on was Xie Linchuan, the heir of the Mingyuan Marquis Manor. The Xie family had served as military officers for generations. By this generation, although Xie Linchuan hadn't inherited the title yet, he already held a post in the 5-city military command, a young talent counted among the finest in the capital. Mother said, "That child Linchuan, I find him steady. Marrying him won't be a loss." I didn't say yes or no. Grandmother asked one question. Though, what about Chingy's own opinion? Mother laughed. She's just a child. What opinions does she have? I'll decide for her as her mother. Grandmother glanced at me. I lowered my head, pretending to fiddle with a loose thread on my sleeve. I had met Xie Linchuan 3 or 4 times. He had a proper appearance, spoke at a measured pace, and looked at people with a certain earnestness. Once, when he came to deliver festival gifts, I happened to be airing out books in the corridor. He walked over and asked a few questions, what I was reading, if I had any parts one didn't understand. I answered briefly, and he nodded. Before leaving, he pulled a string of coral beads from his sleeve and handed them to me. Last time at the Daxiangguo temple, I saw a young lady looking at the coral stall. I thought a young girl might like something like this. I accepted them. His ears were faintly red when he said that. I pretended not to notice. I thought this marriage was settled. But a month before my coming-of-age ceremony, eldest sister returned from our maternal relatives' country estate. She had coughed badly last winter, so mother sent her to the estate outside the city to recuperate for half a year. During those 6 months, every few days I received things she sent back with a messenger, sometimes a sprig of plum blossoms, sometimes a packet of dried fruit, sometimes a plain note that read, "Thinking of you, little sister." Every time mother received these, she would murmur, "Your sister has you in her heart." I nodded in agreement. The day eldest sister returned, mother personally led people to the 10-mile pavilion outside the city to welcome her. I stayed at the manor, arranging her courtyard. The charcoal fire had to be sufficient, the incense light, the bedding replaced with a new set of goose down. I was afraid she might not sleep well in a strange bed. When she entered the gate, she was wrapped in a lotus green cloak lined with gray squirrel fur. Her complexion was rosier than when she left, and her chin had softened a little. Seeing me, she smiled and opened her arms. "Chingy, I missed you so much. Little sister." I let her hold me for a moment. She carried a faint scent of plum blossoms, like the cold, clean fragrance of the old plum trees at the estate. When she let go, her gaze swept over the coral beads on my wrist and paused for a heartbeat. "These beads are quite unique," she said. "From the Xie family heir." I replied. She didn't say anything more, but I saw the corner of her mouth curl, like a crack in spring ice. So shallow and faint, yet unmistakably split open. On the day of my coming-of-age ceremony, it coincided with the Lantern Festival. My birthday falls on the 15th day of the first lunar month. Mother said, "The Lantern Festival is lively. Why not move the ceremony to the festival? Invite a few tables of guests to feast at Wangyue Tower, it would be elegant." Grandmother didn't object, and so it was decided. That day, I wore a goose yellow blouse with a skirt embroidered with a few branches of green calyx plum blossoms. Mother chose it, saying, "Better to keep it refined." Eldest sister also rose early. She wore a silver-red cloak with a collar of white fox fur that made her cheeks look like snow. Mother stared at her for a long time, as if she wanted to say something, but in the end, she held back. Wangyue Tower was the tallest tavern in the capital, with 3-tiered eaves leaning against the moat. Mother had rented the top floor and set up 3 tables of seats. The guests arrived one by one. From the Xie family came Xie Linchuan and his mother. I spotted Xie Linchuan through the crowd, seated at the second table on the east side. Today, he wore a dark blue brocade robe with a jade belt, looking even more proper than usual. The fireworks for the Lantern Festival hadn't started yet, but the city's lanterns were already lit. Eldest sister leaned against the railing, watching the river of lights on the street. Her silver-red cloak was lifted by the night breeze, and she raised a hand to press it down, revealing half of her pale wrist, bare, with nothing on it. I was pouring tea when I suddenly heard a sharp crack. Looking up, I saw that the jade cup in Xie Linchuan's hand had shattered. A shard cut his tiger's mouth, and beads of blood seeped out, staining his sleeve. He didn't even notice. His eyes were fixed on eldest sister, motionless, as if he had forgotten to breathe. Eldest sister seemed unaware, still leaning against the railing, watching the lanterns. The night breeze scattered a strand of hair by her temple. She reached up to tuck it behind her ear, revealing half of her profile. The lantern light fell on her face like a warm veil. The table fell silent for a moment. Someone coughed lightly. Mother stood up and smoothed things over with a laugh, telling the maid to bring the young master Xia a new cup of tea. Only then did Xia Linchuan come back to himself. He looked down at his bleeding hand, and his face flushed crimson, but his eyes kept drifting back to the railing. I stood there, teacup in hand. The goose-yellow blouse, amid the splendor of the hall, looked like a faded old leaf. The coral beads on my wrist pressed against my skin, warm, and just a little tight. After Xia Linchuan's jade cup shattered, his soul shattered along with it. All night long, his gaze followed eldest sister's shadow. When she walked to the railing, he looked at the railing. When my elder sister returned to her seat at the banquet, he was already watching her. She turned her head to say something to someone, and the freshly changed teacup in his hand nearly tipped over again. The maids whispered among themselves, exchanging furtive glances. The young ladies from the other families traded knowing looks. Once, I accidentally caught half a sentence. Something about the heir of the Xia family was originally supposed to discuss marriage with the second young lady. The words cut off the moment they reached me. I didn't look up at them. Later, Xia Linchuan finally rose from his seat and walked over to my elder sister. He murmured something, his voice low. My elder sister's eyes widened slightly. She glanced at Mother, then at me, before standing up and following him into the adjacent private room. That room was separated only by a folding screen. The screen was embroidered with 100 birds paying homage to the phoenix, the golden threads woven so densely that they formed a tight mesh. But the soundproofing was pitifully thin. I sat far away, unable to make out the exact words, but I could hear my elder sister's voice, soft and sweet, like sticky rice, punctuated by occasional, very light laughter. Xia Linchuan's voice was low and urgent, as if words he'd held in for far too long had finally found a crack to pour through. Unstoppable. Mother sat at the table, twisting a handkerchief in her hands, kneading it over and over. I saw her start to stand up several times, only to sink back down. Her nails dug into the embroidery on the handkerchief, leaving a trail of creases. The side room's door stayed closed for the better part of an hour. When it finally opened, Xia Linchuan came out first. His face was flushed red, as if he'd downed half a jug of wine, but the wine flask on the table had clearly remained untouched. His gaze darted away from me, unable to meet my eyes. When he walked over to Mother, his steps were unsteady, not at all like a man trained in martial arts. Mother stood up, taking half a step toward him. Xia Linchuan lowered his head, his ears burning so hot they were nearly translucent. His voice came out hoarse as he said something. Mother listened, frozen for a moment at first. Then, slowly, the expression on her face relaxed. It was a smile of relief, like something that had been hanging in the air for so long had finally landed, the dust settling into place. She turned around, raising her voice to address the entire room of guests. This child, Linchuan, just discussed with me. He says he wishes to change his request and court launching. The room erupted in chaos. 1 or 2 wine cups clattered to the floor. The porcelain shattered, but no one bothered to pick up the pieces. Several of the women covered their mouths. The male guests exchanged glances. Grandmother's prayer beads stopped with a sharp tap. Her clouded eyes swept over Mother, over Xia Linchuan, and finally landed on me. I lowered my head, looking down at my own skirt. The green plum blossoms on the pale yellow fabric were stained a shallow brown by the lamplight. My elder sister stepped out from behind the screen. She leaned against the doorframe, one hand gripping the door, the other covering her mouth. Her eyes were rimmed red, as if painted with a layer of rouge. Tears fell in steady drops, splashing onto the front of her silver-red cloak, leaving dark, wet circles. She waved her hands frantically. No, no, this is meant for my little sister. Her voice was swallowed by the congratulations of the guests. Xia Linchuan strode over and grabbed her hand in one swift motion. He held on tightly. My elder sister's knuckles turned white from the pressure. His voice cracked, as if it was being forced out from deep in his throat. Lansheng, I should have said this the first time I saw you. I thought I could fool myself. But today, I just couldn't hold it in anymore. My elder sister's tears fell even harder. She kept her head down, her shoulders trembling slightly, but she didn't pull her hand away. The entire room of guests began to offer their congratulations. Someone raised a glass. Someone clapped. Mother smiled until her eyes were rimmed with red. Nanny Zhao wiped her eyes on the side, muttering, "The eldest young lady's suffering has finally paid off." I stood there. No one looked at me. The coral bracelet on my wrist pressed into my skin, each bead embedding itself into my flesh, as if it wanted to burrow into my very bones. I kept my head down, staring at the soiled edge of my pale yellow skirt, thinking about how Xia Linchuan had picked out those beads himself. He said he'd seen a young girl looking at a coral stall at the Daxiangguo temple and figured a young lady might like something like that. When he picked them out, he probably never thought about whose wrist those coral beads would end up digging into. Grandmother suddenly let out a heavy cough. She stood up, her prayer beads clicking through several rotations, and said to Mother, "Qingyi is tired. I'll take her back first." Mother paused for a moment, as if she had just remembered I existed. "Oh, yes. Thank you for your trouble, Mother." Then Qingyi, she waved at me, about to say something, but my elder sister suddenly clutched her chest and swayed. Mother immediately turned around, reaching out to steady her. "What's wrong, Shenger? Is your heart acting up again?" I followed Grandmother out of the moon-gazing pavilion. As we descended the stairs, Grandmother's withered hand rested on my wrist, right next to the coral bracelet. Her palm was warm, pressing down on the coolness of the coral. "Child," Grandmother said softly, "if it hurts, just cry." I shook my head. "Grandmother, I don't hurt." Grandmother didn't say anything else. She just held my hand tighter, and didn't let go the entire way. That night, back at the manor, Grandmother had me stay in her room to rest. I lay on the daybed, listening to Grandmother talking in a low voice with Nanny's son in the next room. The sound was muffled, mixed with the wind, making it hard to make out. I turned over, slipped the coral bracelet off my wrist, and clenched it in my palm. The edges of the coral dug into the lines of my hand. A faint ache. The next day, as expected, the Xia family sent over the letter to break off the engagement. The wording was excessively polite, only saying, "Our son is unworthy and dares not delay your daughter's prime." Mother stood under the eaves for a long time, holding that single sheet of paper. The evening breeze scattered a few strands of silver hair from her temples. When she turned to look at me, there was a hint of guilt in her eyes, like a thin layer of water under shattered ice. She walked over and took my hand. As she looked down, her gaze landed on the coral bracelet on my wrist. It lingered there for a moment, as if something had pricked her. "Qingyi, okay," I said. She froze. I said okay. I lifted my head and looked at her, my voice as flat as a pool of winter water. "Sister has always been weak since she was young. The Xia family's heir has his heart set on her. I'll just let her have him." Mother's lips trembled. She opened her mouth. The words "I'm sorry you had to bear this" hovering on her lips, turning over and over, but they never came out. She just let out a long, heavy sigh, as if she had set down a monumental burden. Then she reached out and gently slid the coral bracelet off my wrist. Her movements were light, even tender. One by one, the coral beads slipped off my wrist bone, revealing the faint red marks pressed into my skin from a whole night of wear. My mother cupped the entire strand in her palm. The coral red against her lined, weathered skin looked like a handful of spilled blood. "This thing," she paused, "was originally a gift from the Xie family. Now that the engagement is off, keeping it with you would only draw unwanted attention. I'll hold on to it for you for now." I looked down at my bare wrist bone. Sunlight fell on my skin. The faint red indentation was still there, like a thin rope mark circling my bony wrist. "All right," I said. My mother tucked the coral beads into her sleeve and patted the back of my hand. "Don't worry. I'll find you an even better match in the future. One better than the Xie family." I didn't respond. I had heard those words many times before. The cloud-patterned brocade when I was 6. The box of lychees when I was 8. Every time, Mother said, I'll give you something better later. But I had never seen a single one of those later things. Nanny Zhou caught up from behind. When she saw my empty wrist, her face shifted. Miss, that string of beads, Mother took it away. Nanny Zhou's mouth opened and closed. Her eyes suddenly turned red. She grabbed my hand. Her voice choked. Miss, that was the token of affection given to you by the Xia family's heir. I looked down at the mark on my wrist. It was still there. The coral beads were gone, but the mark remained. It's fine, I said. That night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Moonlight seeped through the paper window, falling onto my empty wrist bone. I reached out into the darkness and clenched my hand, but there was nothing to hold. The next morning, I went to pay my respects to Mother. As I stepped into the main courtyard, I froze. My elder sister was sitting on an embroidered stool beside Mother, fiddling with a pearl flower pinned at her temple. She was wearing a lotus-pink jacket today, her sleeves rolled up half an inch, revealing her wrist. That string of coral beads was wrapped around it. Each bead was perfectly even. The coral red against her fair wrist was even more striking than when I had worn it. She was tilting her head, chatting with Mother, her eyes curving slightly as she laughed. The coral beads swayed gently with the movement of her wrist, the beads clicking together in a soft, crisp sound. These beads looked truly lovely on the eldest miss. Nanny Zhao chimed in from the side. The color really brings out her complexion. My elder sister glanced down at the coral beads on her wrist, as if just remembering they were there. She looked up and saw me standing at the door. Her smile faltered for a moment, then bloomed even wider. Chingy, you're here. She waved me over, the beads on her wrist jingling with the motion. Come see. Mother said these beads go perfectly with my lotus pink dress. I told her they were yours and I shouldn't wear them. But Mother said, she paused, as if weighing her words. Mother said since you rarely go out anyway, they'd just collect dust sitting there. So I borrowed them for a few days. She raised her wrist and turned it toward the light, the coral beads glowing warm and translucent in the sunlight. The quality of these beads is really good. No wonder Linchuan brother picked them so carefully back then. I stood at the threshold. The morning light cast a long shadow of me on the blue brick floor from behind. At the end of that shadow was the string of coral beads on my elder sister's wrist, red as blood. If sister likes them, then wear them, I heard myself say, my voice as flat as a bowl of water that had gone cold. It's not like I need them anymore. My elder sister laughed. A laugh of relief. Mother, holding her teacup nearby, looked at my face. Her lips moved as if she wanted to say something. But my elder sister tugged at her sleeve and said, Mother, look, do these beads match that dress I had tailored yesterday? And Mother turned away. I stepped back out. 03 In the days after the broken engagement, I grew quieter than before. Mother was busy with my elder sister's wedding. The Xia family doubled their betrothal gifts, added 2 more pages to the dowry list, and even hired 3 different groups of fortune tellers to calculate the compatibility of their birth charts. My elder sister would drag me over every few days to try on her newly tailored clothes, one set after another, in shades of silver, red, willow green, and pink, piling up on the bed. She asked me every time, Sister, what do you think of this one? I said it looked good. And she would spin around with a smile. Then I'll take this one. Xia Linchuan came around more often. Before, he would still greet me with a cousin. Now, he only nodded, his gaze brushing past me and landing on my elder sister, unable to look away. Once, I ran into them in the back garden. My elder sister was trying to pick a branch of crabapple blossoms, but couldn't reach. Xia Linchuan came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her, and helped her snap the branch off. I took another path and went back to my own courtyard. Nanny Zhou brought me a bowl of sweet soup. She sat beside me and watched me drink slowly. Her lips moved several times, as if she wanted to speak, but she held back. Finally, she couldn't help it. Miss, if your heart is bitter, just say it. It's not bitter, I said. Nanny Zhou, do you think in this life, the one who cries louder gets more? Nanny Zhou's eyes reddened. Miss, please don't say that. I finished the soup and handed her the bowl. It's fine. There's still a long way to go. I started focusing on managing the household. Over the next half year, my elder sister was pregnant and recuperating at the Sierra residence. Mother was running back and forth between the two houses. Gradually, the management of our household fell into my hands. I started from scratch. Procurement, monthly allowances, the storehouse, expenses for each courtyard. I went through every single item on the densely written lists. If anything didn't match, I called the steward in charge and checked again. Several gaps were shockingly large. The kitchen's procurement had been inflated by 30%. Over a dozen bolts of silk had gone missing from the storehouse. The monthly wages of the servants in various courtyards were often skimmed. First, I redid the procurement list, item by item clawing back the inflated silver. Then I settled accounts with the storehouse steward. After that, I recreated the roster of servants for each courtyard. On the third day, Nanny Zhao came to my courtyard. She was my elder sister's wet nurse, and she carried herself around the mansion with even more authority than Mother. She entered with a smile on her face, but once she sat down, her words were far from polite. Second miss. Regarding those procurement items you've been auditing, some things in the eldest Mrs. courtyard come from other sources and aren't covered by the household's general expenses. Nanny Zhao, please elaborate. She listed a few items. The eldest sister's courtyard had been allocated a batch of shoe brocade, 2 pairs of lanterns, and a full set of rosewood dressing table. I flipped open the account books to check. Those items were indeed not recorded in the public accounts, but the warehouse's issue slip clearly read, for the eldest young lady's courtyard use. Nanny Zhao. I set down the ledger. Once items leave the warehouse, they become an expense from the public accounts. The shoe brocade was brought back by father from Sichuan 2 years ago. The lanterns were received as holiday gifts last year, and the rosewood dressing table was grandmother's dowry gift for sister. These things either entered the public warehouse or came from grandmother's private treasury. Private treasury has its own books, and public accounts have theirs. Since you say they don't fall under public expenses, please bring out grandmother's private treasury ledgers for a comparison. Nanny Zhao's face went pale for an instant. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. The next day, Mother returned. Her expression was sour as she walked in, heading straight to my room and slapping a stack of ledgers onto the desk. Chingy, Nanny Zhao has served in this household for 20 years. Why did you have to humiliate her like that? I stood by the window, still holding a freshly cut orchid stem. I didn't humiliate her. It's just that the accounts need to be clarified. Clarified? Your sister is pregnant. If you stir up trouble with her nanny, what do you think she'll feel when she hears about it? Mother's voice rose. Those things for your sister were promised to her by grandmother. Digging through all this only hurts your own family's dignity. Mother. I set down the orchid and turned around. In sister's courtyard, the charcoal and monthly allowance are 3 times what I receive. The items allocated to her from the warehouse don't match the records on the list. Nanny Zhao claims those things aren't from public accounts, but I couldn't find grandmother's private treasury ledgers. If no one manages this household, the holes will only grow bigger. Mother stared at me. Her chest heaved a few times. Then suddenly, as if deflated, she sighed. When did you become so calculating? Calculating. I looked down at the orchid sap staining my fingertips. Pale green, with a faint astringent scent. Mother, I'm not being calculating. I just want to run this household properly. Mother was silent for a long time. She turned and left, leaving the stack of ledgers on my desk. I stood at the window, watching her figure disappear through the moon gate, my nails digging into the orchid stem until water seeped out. After that, Mother never brought up Nanny Zhao again. But when my eldest sister came home for a visit, she sat with me for a while and said as she left, Chingy, Nanny Zhao has cried to me several times, saying you gave her a hard time. She watched me grow up, and I feel for her. I smiled. If sister feels for her, then by all means, invite her back. As long as the accounts are clear, anything goes. Eldest sister glanced at me, a flicker of light in her eyes, like a dark current beneath broken ice. She didn't say another word. 04 In the third month after my eldest sister's marriage, grandmother arranged a match for me, the second legitimate son of the Dingyuan Marquis Manor, Shen Yanji. I had heard of this man. He had a reputation for talent while studying at the Imperial Academy, later entered officialdom through hereditary privilege, and now served in the Ministry of Revenue, a full fifth-rank official at a young age. To be fair, he was far more accomplished than Xia Linchuan. When mother learned of this, her face changed slightly. She came to my room and sat for a while, twisting her handkerchief between her fingers. Qingyi, this match your grandmother arranged, have you met him? Not yet. The Dingyuan Marquis Manor is prestigious, but your sister just married into the Xie family. Mother chose her words carefully. Outsiders are bound to gossip, saying your sister married beneath you. She's frail and can't bear such talk. I looked at mother and felt a sudden dizziness. 15 years. For 15 years. Every time I got something, mother would first think, will this hurt my eldest sister? If she marries worse than me, she'll be sad. If her betrothal gifts are meager, she'll lose face. If my marriage outshines hers, she'll be upset. But when Xia Linchuan called off my engagement, she never thought about whether I would be hurt. Mother. I heard my own voice. Flat as a pool of winter water. Sister's marriage is hers, and mine is mine. What others say, I can't control. Mother's fingers tightened around the handkerchief. But your sister, she chose to marry Xia Linchuan herself. Gossip is gossip. Mother can't expect me to never marry just because she might feel bad. Mother's face flushed white, then red. She stood up, paced in a circle, as if wanting to say something but swallowing it back. Finally, she dropped the line, "You've grown up. I can't control you anymore," and walked away without looking back. I watched her angry figure vanish behind the curtain, then slowly sat down on the embroidered stool by the window. Outside, the crabapple blossoms were in full bloom, a few pink-white petals drifting in with the wind and landing on the dressing table. I picked one up and held it to the light. The veins were delicate, like the lines on a palm. The next day, Shen Yanji's portrait arrived. In the painting, the young man had clear brows and a bright gaze, holding a scroll of a book with a relaxed posture. Beneath the portrait lay a short note, the handwriting upright and forceful. I've heard the young lady is skilled in managing household affairs. Though unworthy, my daily work at the Ministry of Revenue also involves ledgers and accounts. If I'm fortunate enough to meet you, I'd love to exchange insights. The corner of my mouth lifted. Nanny Zhou peeked over my shoulder and chuckled. This man has an interesting way with words. I tucked the portrait into my cosmetic case and pressed the note under my pillow. That night, under the lamplight, I read it again. The strokes of the characters carried a hint of restrained sharpness, like someone hiding edges behind a ledger. 05 The day Shen Yanji came to pay his respects in person was the third day of the third month. I listened to him speak from behind a screen. His voice was clear, unhurried. He asked after grandmother's health, whether father was busy, and what spring arrangements the manor had made. Grandmother answered with a smile, then asked if his duties at the Ministry of Revenue were tiring. He shared a few amusing anecdotes from work, making grandmother laugh several times. As he was leaving, he suddenly said, I heard the second young lady was recently sorting out the household accounts and uncovered several discrepancies. Such skill is rare among women. Mother interjected from the side. Just a child's mischief. Shen Yanji chuckled. It's rare for someone to straighten out the accounts just by messing around. Behind the screen, I suddenly felt my ears grow warm. Shen Yanji came by twice more after that. One time, he brought me a box of newly printed Dreams of Splendor in the Eastern capital, saying, just some street-side notes, flip through them for fun. I had Nurse Zhou send back a plate of plum preserves I'd pickled myself. The third time he came, I ran into him under the corridor. I was just coming out of the account room, a stack of old ledgers in my arms, when I looked up and there he was. He was a good half-head taller than me, his eyes dropping slightly as he looked down at me. Sunlight leaked through the eaves, painting bright squares across his shoulders. Second Mississippi Master Shen. He glanced at the ledgers in my arms and smiled. Finished sorting out your household accounts? Almost. He nodded, asked nothing more, and stepped aside to let me pass first. As I walked past with the ledgers, I felt his gaze linger on my back for a moment, so light, like a spring petal settling on my shoulder. Back in my room, Nurse Zhou greeted me, ran into Master Shen. And I set the ledgers on the desk, sat down, and took a sip of tea gone cold. What do you mean? And Nurse Zhou chuckled. You know exactly what I mean, miss. I didn't answer. But that night, I took out the short note from under my pillow and read it again. Then I folded it carefully and tucked it into that copy of Dreams of Splendor in the Eastern capital. 06 The wedding was set for early spring next year. Mother said nothing more. She must have talked with grandmother, who forbade her from objecting, so she fell silent. But a few days later, my elder sister sent an invitation, asking me to visit her mansion. I went. The Xia estate looked even grander than before. My sister's courtyard had a new row of shifu crabapple trees planted, their blossoms in full glory. She sat under the corridor drinking tea. When she saw me arrive, she waved me over. She looked better than before, her cheeks had color, and as she spoke, her brows and eyes carried the calm of a mistress of the house. Little sister, you're here. She poured me a cup of tea. I heard your engagement is settled. The Dingyuan Marquis' residence. Yes. How wonderful. She took a sip from her teacup, her smile perfectly composed. Your sister is happy for you. The Marquis' household outranks the Xie family. You'll marry into a more prestigious position than I did. I picked up my teacup and said nothing. The tea was fine Longjing, the temperature just right, with a lingering sweetness. But, little sister, she set down her cup, her expression turning serious. The Marquis' household is high-ranking, and their rules are strict. You've been carefree at home, you'll likely face hardships once you marry in. Let your sister give you some advice. If you're ever unsure about something, come to me first. Thank you, sister. She smiled again and reached out to pat my hand. Her hand was warm and soft, her nails freshly dyed with balsam flower juice. We're sisters by blood, of course. Your sister has your best interests at heart. I stayed with her for about half an hour. When I left, she saw me to the outer gate, leaning against the doorframe and waving. Twilight painted half her face in warm gold, setting off the crabapple flower pins at her temple, like a painting of a lady. I got into the sedan chair, let the curtain fall, and my smile vanished. Nurse Zhou whispered beside me. All those words from the eldest miss. She's afraid I'll marry better than her. And you, let her be afraid. I'll marry as I please. Nurse Zhou asked no more. 07 After autumn arrived, grandmother's cough flared up again. I moved into her courtyard to tend to her, brewing medicine, feeding her soup, and reading aloud every day. Mother came by a few times, but never stayed longer than the time it took a stick of incense to burn. She always rushed off for some small matter at my elder sister's place. One day, grandmother felt a bit better. She leaned against her pillow, took my hand, and fixed her cloudy eyes on my face. Qingyi, grandmother, your mother. She coughed twice, paused to catch her breath, then continued. It's not that she doesn't love you. She's just gotten used to it. I said, I know. Grandmother shook her head. When your elder sister was born, the doctor said she wouldn't survive. Your mother held her in her arms and knelt before the Bodhisattva for 3 days and 3 nights. After that, she was possessed. She believed every extra day your sister lived was a gift from the goddess. Grandmother's hand tightened slightly on mine. She turned it into a debt she's been repaying her whole life. But she forgot, you're her child too. I leaned down to tuck the corner of grandmother's blanket in. Grandmother, I don't blame her anymore. Grandmother looked at me, a thin sheen of tears in her eyes. Truly, I thought for a moment, then spoke slowly. I've already blamed her enough. Now, I don't. But I can't get close to her anymore, either. Grandmother closed her eyes and let out a long, deep sigh. That's fine. That's fine. That night, I stayed on duty in grandmother's courtyard. In her sleep, she murmured a name, broken and indistinct. It sounded like Aisheng or maybe Ayue. I couldn't tell. I sat on the footstool by her bed and gently placed her hand, thin and knobby, back under the blanket. Just before dawn, I fell asleep leaning against the bedpost. In my dream, I saw Mother's back as she took that moon-white cloud-patterned silk from my arms. I ran after her, trying to call out, but no sound came from my throat. I ran and ran, but the corridor never ended. When I woke up, a small patch of my pillow was damp. I wiped my face, got up, and went to stoke the medicine stove. 08 In September, my elder sister suddenly went into labor. I was sorting medicinal herbs in grandmother's courtyard when old Nurse Xiao stumbled in, her face pale as paper. Second miss. Something's wrong. The eldest miss is hemorrhaging. I dropped the herb packets and rushed to the Xia estate. By the time I arrived, my sister's courtyard was in chaos. Maidservants ran in and out with basins of water and cloths. The midwife inside was shouting, "Push!" while my sister's cries rose higher and higher. Mother stood outside the door, already sobbing so hard she could barely stand, supported by two maids. I had Nurse Zhou take charge of calming the scene while I found the Xia household steward and asked a few questions. Was the doctor here? Was ginseng soup prepared? Which midwife had been called? The steward said the doctor was waiting in the back. A bowl of ginseng soup had already been fed to her, and the midwife was the famous old Madame Qian from the capital. I nodded and stood under the corridor, waiting. Inside, my sister's cries gradually weakened, and the midwife's voice grew frantic. "Eldest miss, don't fall asleep. Wake up." From outside, Mother heard this and nearly fainted. After waiting for about half an hour, a baby's cry suddenly rang out from within, thin and reedy, like the mewling of a kitten. The midwife emerged to announce the news. "It's a girl." Mother stumbled and rushed inside. I remained standing beneath the eaves, unmoving. Twilight gathered around us, and the crabapple blossoms in the courtyard had fallen, carpeting the ground. Nanny Zhou came out from inside, her voice low. "The eldest young lady is fine, but her body has taken a toll. The physician says it will be difficult for her to conceive again." "And the Xia family?" The heir heard the news outside but didn't come in. I nodded. A moment later, I turned and headed back to the Gu residence. That night, I sat by the window, placing the string of coral beads, long since broken and rest-wrung, under the lamplight to examine them. The beads had been handled so often that their surfaces bore a warm, mellow sheen. I picked up one and held it to the flame. A faint red glowed within, like congealed blood. The next morning, word came from the Xia family. Xia Linchuan had taken a concubine of good standing. My elder sister spent her month of confinement weeping until her eyes were swollen like peach pits. Mother ran between both households, frantic, a ring of blisters forming around her lips from worry. When she came to my room, her eyes were red-rimmed as she said to me, "Qingyi, your sister's fate is a bitter one. Help her by speaking to Linchuan." I looked at Mother. The gray in her hair at her temples had multiplied since last year, and the lines at the corners of her eyes had deepened. Over the years, she had worn herself out over my elder sister's affairs, yet never once had she spared a shred of that care for me. "Mother," I said softly, "Xia Linchuan taking a concubine is his own doing. Sister is the mistress of the Xia household. She must handle this herself. I cannot persuade him." Mother opened her mouth, as if to retort, but I cut her off. You, Qingyi. How can you speak of your sister like that? She is your own flesh and blood." "She is my own flesh and blood," I confirmed with a nod. "But I am not her shadow. Whether she lives well or poorly, and whether I live well or poorly, those are two separate matters." Mother stared at me for a long time. Her lips trembled, her eyes reddened and then paled. Finally, she gave a sharp flick of her sleeve and walked away without looking back. The door slammed shut behind her with a bang, rattling the window paper until it hummed. I remained seated, unmoving. A leaf had been shaken loose from the orchid on the windowsill. I bent down, picked it up, held it in my palm for a moment, then placed it back into the soil. 09 The wedding day drew near. Shen Yanji came to deliver a seasonal gift. That day, I happened to be in grandmother's courtyard. When grandmother said, "Since he's here, You might as well meet him. I went to the main hall. Shen Yanji was dressed in a deep blue robe with a jade belt, looking far more spirited than in his portrait. When he saw me enter, he rose and clasped his hands in greeting. His gaze lingered on my face for a heartbeat before a smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Second Mississippi Master Shen. Grandmother chuckled. You young people have your talk. I'm an old woman. Tired. I'll go rest. Once grandmother had left, the hall fell silent. I lowered my head to sip my tea and heard Shen Yanji set down his cup across from me. His voice carried a hint of amusement. That copy of The Dream of Splendor in the Eastern Capital I sent you last time, have you finished it? I have, I replied, setting down my teacup. The bustling streets of Bianliang are vividly written. Far more entertaining than flipping through ledgers. He laughed. Then I'll bring another next time. What would you like to read? I thought for a moment. The Commentary on the Water Classic. Does your household have a copy? He raised an eyebrow. Such a dense book. It's a travelogue of mountains and rivers. Reading it feels like being on the road. The curve of his lips deepened. The way he looked at me seemed bathed in a layer of sunlight. All right. I'll search through our library at home. He drew a small sandalwood box from his sleeve and slid it across the table to me. It's nothing precious. I just saw it on the street the other day and thought it suited you. I opened it to find an ebony hairpin. The head was carved into a half-opened orchid, its petals as thin as cicada wings, the craftsmanship exquisitely fine. No gold or jade inlay, it was as simple as something casually picked up from a study. I held the hairpin, my fingertips tracing the grooves of the carving. Suddenly, my heart gave a small leap. Not heavy, just a light tap, as if someone had gently knocked on my chest. Thank you, Master Shen. He stood to take his leave. At the doorway, he turned back to look at me. That hairpin, he paused. That year at the Lantern Festival, I saw the painting on your lantern. It was an orchid. That year's Lantern Festival. I was startled for a moment, then suddenly remembered that Shangyuan Festival. I had been walking down the street carrying a paper lantern painted with orchids. My elder sister walked ahead, surrounded by mother and the maids. My lantern had been knocked askew by the crowd and nearly caught fire. I had righted it myself and kept walking. You saw me then. He said with a smile. You held your lantern steady, and the orchid was beautifully painted. I meant to go over and say a word to you, but my classmates dragged me away. He waved a hand. We'll talk another day. He was gone. I stood at the doorway for a long time. The evening breeze carried the fragrance of osmanthus flowers, brushing against my face. Nanny Zhou came out from behind and saw me clutching that ebony hairpin. She smiled. Master Shen's heartfelt gift, have you accepted it, miss? I tucked the hairpin into my chignon. The ebony contrasted with my dark hair, inconspicuous, yet it felt as though it had been placed exactly where it belonged. I reached up and touched the half-opened orchid at the tip of the hairpin, suddenly recalling the question he had asked me that day. Are the accounts at your household all settled? So it wasn't the accounts he had been talking about. It was me. A month after my elder sister gave birth, I went to the Sierra residence to deliver some gifts. Truth be told, mother had sent me. She didn't dare go herself. My elder sister had wept several times during her confinement. Every time she saw mother, she would throw a tantrum, saying that if you hadn't urged Lin Chuan to marry me back then, I wouldn't be in this state. Mother's heart was choked with bitterness, so she pushed me to deliver the things. I had Nanny Zhou prepare a box of bird's nest, 2 bolts of fine silk, and several kinds of calming herbal remedies. When I arrived at the Sierra residence, my elder sister's wet nurse, Nanny Zhao, came out to receive them, saying that the eldest young lady was asleep and not fit for visitors. I handed the things over to her and turned to leave. As I walked out of the courtyard, I ran straight into Xia Linchuan. He looked like he had just returned from outside, the hem of his robe still speckled with mud. When he saw me, he stopped in his tracks. The weariness on his face was laid bare under the sunlight, impossible to hide. Dark circles ringed his eyes, a stubble of blue-black bristles shadowing his jaw. He looked like a man whose soul had been drained away. Second Miss Gu. I stopped, inclined my head in a slight bow. Eldest young master Xie. He opened his mouth, as if to speak. We stood a few paces apart. The crabapple blossoms in the courtyard had fallen, scattering their withered petals across the ground. A breeze swept through, lifting a few of them into the air. He glanced at me, then looked away, as if uncertain where to rest his gaze. Have you been well lately? Well, I said. He nodded. We stood there for another moment. He seemed to want to say something. His Adam's apple bobbed once, but in the end, he only managed, I'm sorry to have troubled you to come all this way. It's nothing. My sister's health is what matters. With a slight nod to him, I turned and exited through the side gate. When I reached the mouth of the alley, I looked back. Xie Linchuan was still standing at the courtyard gate, one hand braced against the doorframe, as if rooted to the spot. The twilight crept in from all sides, swallowing half his silhouette. The other half, blurred in the slanting sunlight, looked like a smear of ink. Nanny Zhou whispered, "The eldest young master looks like he's lost a lot of weight." I didn't reply. I climbed into the sedan chair, and the curtain fell, shutting him and the entire Xie mansion out. After that, I never went to the Xie residence again of my own accord. But news of Xie Linchuan still trickled back to me in fragments. First, Nanny Zhao came to our house to pick up medicine for my elder sister. She spoke with Nanny Zhou under the eaves, and Nanny Zhou later relayed the conversation to me. The eldest miss just finished her month of confinement. She found the concubine an eyesore and demanded the eldest young master send her away. He refused. So the eldest miss started crying. When she finished crying, she cursed him, saying all the promises he made when he married her were lies. Then, one day, my mother sighed deeply and told me my elder sister's temper was getting worse. Even Linchuan has started avoiding her. As she spoke, her brow was furrowed with worry, and her fingers drummed a steady rhythm on the edge of the table. I didn't respond. I just lowered my head and poured her another cup of tea. Later, I happened to pass by the main hall and overheard my father talking to my mother. His voice was heavy, weighed down. "That Xie boy came to see me a few days ago for a drink. Half drunk, he started spouting nonsense." "What nonsense?" "He said if he'd known it would come to this, he never would have broken off the engagement with Qingyi. He said that night at the Lantern Festival, Lanqing stood in the wind, dressed in silver red, smiling at him, and he forgot everything else. Now that he remembers, he realizes all those good days were just paper thin, ready to tear at the slightest touch." My mother was silent for a long time before she said, "He was just drunk." My father snorted. "Drunk, yes. But the words were true. These past few days, Qingyi's engagement to the Dingyuan Marquis' household was settled. The whole capital is buzzing with it. He must have heard the rumors and felt bitter." I stood behind a pillar in the outer hall, listening. The medicine bowl in my hands trembled slightly. A few drops of the medicinal broth splashed out, staining the dark bricks with deep, spreading circles. I glanced down at them, then turned and walked away. I didn't tell anyone what I had overheard. But that night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. The moonlight outside the window lay cold and pale across the floor. I stretched out my hand to look at it in the light. My right wrist was bare and empty. The red mark left by the coral bracelet had long since faded, leaving no trace behind. But some things don't need to leave a mark. They grow into your bones. The slightest movement, and a tendon aches with the pain. Winter arrived, and my grandmother's chronic cough flared up again. I was attending to her in her courtyard. One evening, as I went to the kitchen to fetch her medicine, I ran into Xie Linchuan again. This time, he had come to deliver an invitation. The Xie family matriarch's birthday was approaching, and they had sent a formal invitation. Nanny's son received the invitation, and Xie Linchuan waited at the courtyard gate for a reply. He happened to catch sight of me as I came out of the moon-shaped gate, holding the medicine bowl. The twilight pressed heavily down on the eaves, and the lanterns under the corridor hadn't been lit yet. He stood in the shadows. When he saw me emerge, he took half a step forward, then recoiled, as if burned. "Second Miss Gu." I set down the medicine bowl and inclined my head in a bow. "Eldest young master Xie." He fell silent again. The corridor was quiet, save for the occasional tinkling of the copper bells hanging from the eaves. I kept my eyes fixed on the cracks between the bricks in front of my toes, waiting for him to finish. He seemed to hesitate for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and hoarse. "You're engaged." "I am. To the Dingyuan Marquis' household." "Yes." He fell silent again. The ivy on the courtyard wall rustled as the wind stirred the leaves. A cascade of rustling sounds. His shadow, stretched long by the setting sun, trembled at the edges, as if something was struggling beneath the surface. "That young Master Shen," he finally began again. "Is he good to you?" I lifted my eyes to look at him. He stood against the light, his features blurred by the twilight, but his eyes were clear. In them, I saw guilt, regret, and the exhaustion of something repeatedly torn apart. It was a completely different look from the one he had given my elder sister at the Lantern Festival that year. Back then, his eyes had burned so brightly, as if he was seeing light for the first time in his life. "He is very good to me," I said. Xia Linchuan's lips moved. He seemed to want to smile, but the corners of his mouth couldn't lift. They only twisted into a stiff, unnatural arc. That's good, that's good." He lowered his gaze, his eyes falling on my empty right wrist. They stopped there for a moment. Then, his fingers suddenly clenched the fabric of his sleeve, his knuckles turning white, as if he had been stabbed by something sharp. "That bracelet." His voice caught in his throat. "Do you still have it?" I looked at his face. It was much thinner than before, the line of his jaw sharp as a knife's edge. "No," I said. "I threw it away long ago." His face paled for an instant. I didn't look at him again. I bent down, picked up the medicine bowl, and walked past him. As I passed him, I heard him call out softly, "Qingyi." The sound was so brief. It was as if the wind had snapped it off. The last syllable dissolved into the twilight, never to catch up with me. I didn't stop. That early winter, Shen Yanji came to our house to deliver seasonal gifts. It happened to be the same day Xia Linchuan's mother came to return a reply to my grandmother's birthday invitation. The two parties met in the main hall. Shen Yanji stood under the eaves, waiting for my grandmother to send word. Xia Linchuan's mother came out from inside, saw Shen Yanji, and greeted him with a smile. Shen Jiyan returned the gift with a composed and dignified air, neither humble nor arrogant. I came from the backyard carrying a tea tray and saw Xia Linchuan standing behind the screen wall. He didn't enter the main hall. He just leaned against the screen wall, as if waiting for something. When he saw me walk past with the tray, his gaze followed me for a few steps, finally settling on the black wooden hairpin in my bun. It was a half-opened orchid, the one Shen Jiyan had given me. He didn't come over to speak to me. He just stood there, watching. Shen Jiyan took the tea tray from my hands, glanced toward the screen wall, and said nothing. He bent down, arranged the teacups neatly, and then asked me softly, "Are you tired?" I said I wasn't. He smiled slightly, gently tucking a stray strand of hair behind my ear that the wind had tousled. The gesture was as natural as if he'd done it 1,000 times before. When I turned, my peripheral vision caught the space behind the screen wall, empty. Xia Linchuan had left at some point. Only a faint scuff mark remained on the blue brick floor, like someone had stood too long, roots growing into the earth, then pulled themselves out by force. After that, I didn't see him for a long time. One day, Nanny Zhou returned from outside, her face complicated as she told me something. "Miss, the Xia family, things have blown up." "What happened?" "The eldest daughter beat up the heir's concubine." Nanny Zhou lowered her voice. "She used family discipline, whipped her with a rattan cane. The concubine was 2 months pregnant, she lost the child. The Xia matriarch was furious and summoned the eldest daughter for a scolding. The eldest daughter came back crying and screaming, saying the heir was protecting that wretch. The heir argued back and said what?" Nanny Zhou glanced at me, as if hesitant to speak. I looked at her, and she continued. "The heir said, if you hadn't worn that dress and stood in the wind smiling at me back then, why would I have called off Qingyi's engagement?" My hand holding the teacup paused. The water in the cup rippled, then steadied. I took a sip, it was cold. When the eldest daughter heard that, She smashed everything she could in the room. She cried all night. The next day, she sent someone back to the mansion to complain to the madam, saying the heir still had thoughts of you. I set down the teacup and placed the lid back on it. The porcelain clinked softly. Nanny Zhou, I said. From now on, there's no need to tell me anything about the Xie family. Nanny Zhou acknowledged with a yes and withdrew. The room fell quiet. Outside, the wind picked up. The old locust tree in the courtyard rustled as leaves fell, scattering a carpet of dry yellow debris across the ground. I sat by the window and drank the cold tea, sip by sip, until it was gone. Then I stood, placed the cup into the wash basin. The water rippled a few times, reflecting my face. My features were still delicate and plain, no different from before. But as I looked, I noticed the curve of my mouth had changed. I was no longer that girl standing in the corner of Wangyue Tower, holding a teacup, waiting to be seen. The things that came after, I pieced together from fragments others told me. I heard my elder sister caused a ruckus for days, and Xia Linchuan stopped returning to the main courtyard. He stayed in the outer study for a month. My sister went looking for him several times, and every time they fought. Once, in front of the servants, she overturned his desk. Ink, brushes, and paper scattered everywhere. Xia Linchuan stood at the door, watching her the whole time without saying a word. Finally, he said just one thing. Are you done yet? My sister's crying stopped abruptly. She stood there for a long time. They said. Her makeup was ruined, mascara smeared into 2 black streaks, ugly, unworthy of a marquise lady. She didn't cry or rage anymore. She just turned and left. After that, she came back to our family home more and more often. Mother grew so worried that a ring of blisters formed around her mouth. Mother came to my courtyard twice. Both times, she sighed before speaking. Once, she finally said it. Qingyi, your sister, she and your brother-in-law are in such a mess, can you? No. I said. Mother's face stiffened. Mother, I said, setting down my embroidery hoop and looking up at her. I gave her that marriage. I gave her Xie Linchuan, too. Before she married him, I had already given up everything. Whether she lives well or poorly now, I have no way and no standing to interfere. Mother's lips trembled, as if she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. She stared at me for a long time. The light in her eyes shifted from frustration to surprise, and then to something I couldn't quite name. As if she suddenly didn't recognize me. Qingyi, you weren't like this before. You made me that way before. I said. I picked up the embroidery hoop again, the needle piercing through the satin, stitching out a small orchid petal. Now, I'm done giving. Mother didn't reply. She stood for a moment, then turned and left. The door closed softly behind her, no slam. I looked down at the orchid in my hands. The petal was only half-stitched, the pale green thread shimmering with a fine, soft luster in the sunlight. That winter, I heard another piece of news. After the miscarriage, Xia Linchuan's concubine was sent to a village estate to recover. The Xia matriarch arranged for him to take a noble concubine. My sister no longer fought or argued. She just locked herself in her room all day. Nanny Zhao said she had lost a lot of weight. Her once slightly rounded chin had sharpened again, as if something had worn her down bit by bit. Mother went to the Xia mansion to see her once. When she came back, her eyes were red. She said to me, your sister said, if only she hadn't worn that silver-red dress. I was by the window trimming dead leaves from the orchids. The scissors closed with a soft click. She said she didn't plan to wear it at first. It was Nanny Zhao who said the eldest daughter looked best in that color and would surely catch everyone's eye. Mother's voice grew quieter. She said she just wanted people to look at her a little more. She didn't think about anything else. I gathered the dead leaves in my palm and walked to the window to scatter them. Mother, I said, turning to meet her eyes. I can't control what my sister thinks, but that string of coral beads really did come off my wrist. That marriage really did slip through my hands to hers. Now she says she shouldn't have worn that dress, but she already took everything. I lost everything. She lost nothing. What does she have to be upset about? Mother was stunned. She looked at me as if she had seen something on my face that she had never seen before. After a long moment, she slowly lowered her eyes, her shoulders sagging. Chingy. Her voice was very soft. Your mother has wronged you. I stood by the window, the daylight falling on my back, casting my shadow across the blue brick floor. The half-embroidered orchid lay on the table, the needle still stuck in the satin, the silk thread hanging down like a pale green rain. Mother, there's no need to say you're sorry, I said. The days are long. Let each of us live our own life. My mother didn't say anything more. She slowly stood up, and when she reached the door, she turned back to look at me. Her lips moved, but in the end, no words came out. After the door closed, I stood by the window for a long time. The wind crept in through the crack in the window, cool against my skin. I picked up the half-embroidered orchid and looked at it for a moment. The shape of the petals had already formed, a pale green that glowed like a pool of spring water under the sunlight. I remembered that year at the Lantern Festival, walking through the crowd holding a paper lantern painted with orchids. Someone looked at me from across the street. He didn't come over. But what happened later, no one could have predicted. 10 in the first month of the new year. I was married. The day before the wedding ceremony, my elder sister came. Her health had recovered somewhat, but her complexion was far from what it used to be. She sat with me in the bridal chamber for a while, watching me try on the bright red wedding gown, and suddenly said, "Little sister looks better in red than I do." I was facing the bronze mirror, fastening the pendant at my waist, and didn't turn around. Sister is joking. I mean it. Her voice was a little muffled. Look at you, with your calm brows and eyes. You can pull off such a strong color. When I wear red, my face looks too pale. It's not good. I finished fastening the pendant and turned around. My elder sister was sitting on the embroidered stool, twisting a handkerchief in her hands. When she lowered her head, the line of her jaw was sharper than before, and there were two faint shadows under her eyes. Sister, I said, why did you come today? Her hands stopped twisting the handkerchief for a moment. After a long pause, she looked up, a sheen of water in her eyes. That string of coral beads. And, Linchuan. Sister didn't mean to take them from you. It's just that. She sniffled. I've been sickly since I was a child. Everyone told me I wouldn't live long. So I thought, every day I'm alive, I have to hold on to something with all my might. Hold on to the things I can see and touch. I felt that if I held on, then I was truly living. I looked at her. A single tear finally fell from her eyes, sliding down her cheek to her chin, hanging there, about to fall. Sister, I spoke. You've held on to a lot. The Xia family's status, Linchuan's affection, mother's love, the flattery of everyone in the household. You haven't missed a single one. But you, I don't want your things. Yours are your own. I walked over to her, bent down, and looked her straight in the eyes. But mine are my own, too. What I gave up before, I gave up willingly. What I won't give up now, I simply don't want to. My elder sister stared at me, stunned. That tear finally fell, landing on the back of her hand that was clutching the handkerchief. I crouched down in front of her, softening my voice. Sister, we've both grown up. Each of us walks her own path. Okay. My elder sister didn't answer. She just lowered her head, her shoulders trembling slightly. I patted the back of her hand, then stood up and went back to look at the wedding gown in the bronze mirror. The person in the mirror was dressed in bright red, her brows and eyes as calm as ever. But there was something more in the corners of her eyes and the tips of her brows, like an orchid that had been buried in the ground for a long time, finally waiting for spring, and pushing a tender shoot up through the mud. 11 The day I married into the Dingyuan Marquis' household, the sun came out. Shen Yanji came to fetch me on horseback, his wedding robes making his features look even deeper. When the bridal sedan chair stopped in front of the mansion, he reached out to help me down. His palm was dry and warm, steady and firm. After the ceremony, we entered the bridal chamber. After the matchmakers said their good luck wishes and withdrew, Shen Yanji sat down beside me. He didn't rush to lift my veil. Instead, he asked first, "Are you hungry?" I laughed softly from behind the red veil. Laughing means you're hungry. He got up, walked around, and when he came back, he was holding an oil paper package. When the veil was lifted, the sweet fragrance of osmanthus cakes filled the air. I snagged them from the kitchen. Have something to tide you over. I took the osmanthus cake and took a bite. It was soft, sweet, and still slightly warm. Shenyanji. How did you know I like osmanthus cakes? He sat down beside me, tilting his head in thought. Last time at your mansion. That plate of osmanthus cakes in your grandmother's courtyard. You ate two. Your sister only had one and then stopped. My fingers tightened around the osmanthus cake. That plate of cakes was sent by the kitchen on the day I was attending to my grandmother in her sick room. I only remembered that day my elder sister came to visit grandmother. She sat in the room for a while. And before she left, she pushed the plate of osmanthus cakes over to me. Shen Yanji had seen it. You were there that day too. I was. He smiled. I was waiting in the corridor for your grandmother's reply and happened to see it. I didn't say anything more. I lowered my head and slowly finished the osmanthus cake. The sweetness spread from my tongue down my throat, warm and comforting. He sat beside me, drinking tea and waiting. Only when I finished eating did he stand up. You've had a long day. Get some rest first. I'll go make the rounds at the reception and be right back. He reached the door and turned back. Oh, and I've put that copy of Commentary on the Water Classic in the study for you. Feel free to read it whenever you want. The door closed. I sat on the bridal bed, still clutching the oil paper package in my hand. The red silk curtain swayed in the lamplight, casting a warm glow across the floor. I reached up and touched the blackwood hairpin in my bun. The orchid petals lay against my temple, warm to the touch. Suddenly, I remembered that year at the Lantern Festival. A young man across the crowd who saw the paper lantern in my hand. He didn't come over, but he didn't forget. Something in my heart that had been hard for so long suddenly softened. Epilogue. In the 3rd year of our marriage, I became pregnant. Shen Yanji was so happy he paced around the study several times, then stayed up all night writing a letter to my grandmother to share the news. My mother also sent a letter. The letter said that my elder sister had fallen out with her. Xia Linchuan's concubine gave birth to a son. My elder sister couldn't stomach it, quarreling with him day after day. She wept and raged. Our mother tried to reason with her twice, only for my sister to snap. Even you find me tiresome now, don't you? At the end of the letter, my mother asked, Chingy, about your sister's matter, could you perhaps talk to her? I folded the letter, set it on the windowsill, and called for Nurse Zhou. Put mother's letter away in the chest. No need to reply. Nurse Zhou acknowledged the order. She carried the letter out but paused at the doorway and turned back. Miss, what is it? She smiled. Nothing. I just noticed how well you look. His Highness, the, treats you well. I looked down, touching my belly, which had yet to show, and curled the corners of my mouth. Outside the window, the crabapple tree was in full bloom. The spring breeze slipped through the crack in the window, stirring the half-read copy of Shui Jingzhu on the desk. The pages rustled in a noisy flurry. Shen Yanji caught one of the fluttering sheets just as he entered. He glanced at it and chuckled. The mountains and waters of Chuzhou. Want to go see them? I'll wait until the child is a little older. He tucked the page back into place, walked over, and sat down beside me. The shadows of the crabapple blossoms fell between us, scattering a patchwork of warm, fragmented light. He reached out and brushed a stray strand of hair from my temple, his fingertips warm. I'll go with you then, he said. I leaned against his shoulder and closed my eyes. All right. A wind chime under the eaves chimed softly. I thought of many years ago, a young girl holding a lantern shaped like an orchid, standing in the throng of a festival, raising her arm high for fear the flame would scorch the paper. A boy, across the sea of people, glanced her way. He said nothing, but later, he brought all the lights of that night to her side. The end. Now, let's listen to the second story. My elder brother had always been muddle-headed. He actually sent my birthdate card to my future brother-in-law, and gave my sisters to my fiancé. I was furious and demanded he go and exchange them. But on my wedding night, the one who lifted my veil was my brother-in-law. My brother had forgotten to make the swap. Luckily, my sister and I had married brothers from the same family, so it was still possible to trade back. But my brother blocked my way. Your sister and the general have already pledged their hearts to each other. They only kept it from you because they didn't want to hurt you. Why are you fighting her for this? Marry his younger brother. In the future, your sister and brother-in-law will both cherish you. Isn't that good? He locked the door and drugged me. Fu Huaiji only believed I had done it on purpose. After the marriage, he would often come to me at night, carrying resentment, and ask, "Sister-in-law, why won't you look at me anymore?" Until his dying breath, he never remembered my name, still calling me sister-in-law. So, when I returned to the day my brother made the mistake with the birthdate cards, I clenched my fists. No need to trouble you, brother. I'll go exchange them myself. 01 My brother's smile faded slightly. My words displeased him. My sister gently tried to persuade me. Brother made a mistake, so he should fix it. Don't make a scene. An unmarried girl like you going to another family's house to swap cards, people will laugh at you. Say you're desperate to marry, that you're unstable. Hearing this, my brother chimed in. Your sister's right. I'll go. But in my past life, I trusted him to do it, and I ended up with my reputation destroyed. It turned out my sister had taken one look at my fiancé and fallen for him. So she deliberately caused the mix-up, letting her get engaged to General Fu. I was forced to marry the second son of the Fu family, bearing the false shame of stealing my sister's husband, enduring Fu Huaiji's humiliation night after night. Now, my brother and sister were stopping me from going, only because they feared I would overturn the situation. The bitterness of my past life still clung to my heart, making even my breathing heavy. I spoke in a low voice. I'm going myself. I don't care what others say. The moment the words left my mouth, a servant announced that the second young master of the Pei family had arrived. I looked up. Fu Huaiji stood there in a dark robe, handsome and striking. In his hand, he held a red birthdate card. His voice was clear and cold. Master Mu sent the wrong card this morning, giving me the second young lady's. I've come to return it. My brother and sister both froze. Only my heart tightened. In my past life, Fu Huaiji had never returned the card. He, too, had lived a second life. Like me, he didn't want to repeat that disastrous marriage. My brother forced a strained smile. I was careless and mixed up the cards. I'm sorry to trouble you with this trip, young Master Fu. No trouble at all. In fact, I came today to set the wedding date. I want to marry you as soon as possible. How about the 8th of next month? Fu Huaiji asked my brother. But his gaze lingered on me for a moment. The warning in it was unmistakable. I lowered my eyes. After knowing him all these years, how could I not understand his meaning? He thought I had feelings for him, and feared I would try to delay the wedding. But the original date was set for the end of the month. If my sister and I couldn't marry on the same day, and I couldn't secretly arrange a betrothal with Fu Jingxing, how could I swap the groom for my sister? My brother gave a subtle signal. My sister caught on immediately, pressing a hand to her temple and swaying as if dizzy. Fu Huaiji rushed to her side. He didn't even notice he had dropped my birthdate card. His eyes were full of my sister. What's wrong? Your headache. My brother took the opportunity to stand up. The wind is picking up. Your is frail and can't take the cold. Then I'll take you back to your room to rest. Fu Huaiji and my brother carefully helped my sister along. The matter of moving up the wedding date was brushed aside. No one paid me any attention anymore. No one asked if I wanted to leave. I was left to soak in the chill of the cold wind. Before she left, my sister even stepped on my birthdate card. The look she threw back over her shoulder, I had seen it too many times in my past life. She was laughing at me, like I was a joke. 02 My sister and I were the same age. But from childhood, our brother had kept her on a tight leash. She had to learn music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. She had to learn accounting and household management. Every time she complained, our brother would scold her. If you don't learn, how will you take care of Xiaohuan in the future? As for me, my brother let me ride horses and shoot arrows. He didn't force me to learn the tedious rules of womanhood. He let me live as I pleased, supporting everything I wanted to do. My brother doted on me, but he was also muddle-headed. When we were young, he bought 2 boxes of grapes, one for my sister and one for me. When we lifted the lids, my sister's grapes were clearly a size bigger. One bite, and they were bursting with sweetness. My box of grapes required me to press the pulp hard against my tongue just to taste a hint of sweetness. I pushed the box away, my voice thick with grievance. Why did sister get such good grapes? Brother, you're playing favorites. My brother slapped his forehead. I was in such a rush to get back. I grabbed the wrong box by mistake. Xiao Huan, can you forgive me? Next time I buy fruit, I'll check carefully. Only then did he manage to soothe me. I understood him, too. Our parents had passed away early. He'd raised my sister and me all on his own, all while working as a collator in the Hongwen Academy. With so much on his plate, it wasn't strange for him to make a mistake in a moment of distraction. He did everything himself. Even my hairpins, skirts, and rouge, he bought them all personally. But what he bought was always my sister's favorite style, never mine. My brother would wince in regret. Sorry, Xiao Huan. I got confused again. I forgot to buy what you like. Every time this happened, my sister would look at me with that mocking gleam in her eyes, then say in her soft, sweet voice, "Don't be mad, Xiao Huan. You can have mine. Pick whatever you want from here." But what good was picking first? I'd search and never find a single thing that suited me. In the end, I'd force myself to take a pink hairpin that didn't match me at all. That same afternoon, I saw my brother rush back to the manor, holding a hairpin. It was exactly the same style as the one my sister had given up for me. He said, "Xiao Huan, you and Yuer are both my most important sisters. I don't want either of you to feel wronged. So I bought a replacement for Yuer, but what he replaced was still what my sister liked. What I liked. I never got a single thing." A thorn lodged itself in my heart. It jabbed at me, making me uneasy. As I grew older, I went from helplessly accepting my brother's absent-mindedness to slowly growing suspicious. I couldn't figure it out. My brother collated texts at the Hongwen Academy, thousands upon thousands of obscure ancient manuscripts, and never made a single mistake. Even the emperor praised his meticulousness and excellent memory. So why, when it came to matters between my sister and me, did he always get confused? It wasn't until my sister and I both came of age, set to marry into the Fu family on the same day, that I began to understand. The Fu family had helped ours in a time of need. Our parents had arranged the marriages long ago. My sister was to marry the second son, Fu Huaiji, and I was to marry the eldest son, Fu Jingxing. Only, Fu Jingxing had been made a general as a youth and spent all his time guarding the border. I rarely saw him, but Fu Huaiji, who stayed in the capital, often brought me snacks, jewelry, and fine clothes from the border on behalf of Fu Jingxing, all in the colors and styles I loved. I was surprised by the coincidence. Fu Huaiji's eyes curved into crescents. My brother doesn't talk much and keeps to himself. He's not good at writing letters, but he had me ask around. He wanted to know what you like, Xiao Huan. He never says it out loud, but you're the only one in his heart. Back then, even though I'd never really interacted with Fu Jingxing, from Fu Huaiji's words, I'd already fallen for that brave young general. I looked forward to our wedding night with a heart full of hope. I called out shyly, "Husband, Yuer." A single murmur shattered my fantasy in an instant. The one who lifted my veil wasn't Fu Jingxing. It was Fu Huaiji. His cheeks were flushed red from drink, his steps unsteady. He held me, calling my sister's name over and over. Panicked, I shoved Fu Huaiji away. "You're in the wrong courtyard. I'm not Mu Huan." I rushed to get out and find Fu Jingxing. But then I realized, my brother had somehow brought people to block the door. He scolded me. "On your wedding night, Xiao Huan, how can you go disturb your sister and her husband? This is Fu Huaiji's courtyard. He is your husband now." My steps faltered. I stared at my brother in shock, anger flaring. "Brother, how can you be confused at a time like this? Have you forgotten? My husband is Fu Jingxing. I'm going to go get my sister right now, asterisk bam. Asterisk my brother shoved me back into the room. My lower back slammed hard into the corner of the table, and the pain made tears stream down my face. But the brother who used to soothe me whenever I cried was now completely unmoved. He just sighed. Actually, your sister and the general already pledged themselves to each other in secret. They just never told you because they didn't want to hurt you. Why do you have to fight her for him? If you marry his younger brother, won't it be nice to have both your sister and brother-in-law dote on you? Only then did I understand. The day Fu Jingxing returned to the capital to prepare for our wedding, my sister fell in love with him at first sight and changed her mind. He fell for her, too. Together with my brother, they secretly swapped the grooms. Only Fu Huaiji and I were kept in the dark. That thorn that had lodged in my heart since childhood seemed to have burrowed into my very bones. My breath hitched from the pain. Fu Huaiji loves my sister. When he finds out, he'll make a scene and demand to switch back. The clatter of a chain cut off my struggle. My brother had locked the door from the outside. I put drugs in his wine and in the incense in this room. Once the deed is done, and with the marriage contract sealed by our betrothal papers, he has no choice but to acknowledge you as his wife. My brother's voice softened. Fu Huaiji has loved your sister since they were kids. He'll surely love you for her sake and treat you well. Xiao Huan, your brother would never harm you. Every word hit me like a hammer, leaving my mind blank. So the betrothal papers my brother had promised to exchange back. He'd never actually done it. So I'd never been wrong all these years. My brother only loved my sister. He didn't hesitate to drug me and give me away to another man, just to make her happy. My heart turned cold, trembling, but my body grew hotter and hotter, burning from within. In a daze, I was tackled by Fu Huaiji, who had also lost his senses. Don't cry, don't cry. Fu Huaiji gently kissed away my tears. Every touch was tender as water. But I was Mu Huan, not Mu Yuer. 03 When I woke again, it was because someone shoved me away, jarring the injury on my lower back, and the pain jolted me awake. The gentle Fu Huaiji from last night was now pale as a ghost. Why are you in my bed? Where's Yuer? He scrambled into his clothes and rushed out to find her. The chain on the door was gone. The servants. Murmurs drifted in from afar. The general's wife is so kind. She gave us all tips first thing this morning. But wasn't she supposed to marry the second son? How did she end up with the eldest? Her brother said that Mu Huan had a crush on Fu Huaiji for a long time and switched the grooms in secret. Fu Huaiji stopped dead in his tracks. He turned around and looked at me, who had chased after him. In his eyes, there was resentment and hatred. Mu Huan, I regret ever taking care of you for my brother. Drugging me, forcing yourself into my marriage. Aren't you ashamed in front of your sister and my brother? His roar cut deeper into my heart. During the years when Fu Jingxing was away from the capital, it was Fu Huaiji who looked after me. Every time he invited my elder sister out, he would always bring me along. It's not right to leave you cooped up in the mansion all alone. Since my brother isn't here, it's only fitting that I take care of you in his place. Fu Huaiji meant every word he said. When I first learned to ride a horse, I fell and got hurt. My brother didn't want me to continue, but I loved horseback riding. I cried and threw a tantrum, insisting on carrying on. It was him who spoke up for me. Lord Mu is just afraid that Xiao Huan will get hurt again. From today on, let me teach her. I promise she won't suffer even a scratch. After that, every time I fell off my horse, Fu Huaiji would catch me steadily. Then he'd rub my head and gently soothe my startled nerves. What's there to be afraid of? I'm here. Some people said I wasn't ladylike, always climbing trees and catching fish. Nothing like my gentle and virtuous elder sister. When I felt humiliated, he stood in front of me, shielding me from those contemptuous gazes. Who says a woman has to be as fragile as a willow in the wind? Xiao Huan can hit the bullseye with her arrows, climbs trees faster than I can, and is brave and fearless. Are you even half as capable as her? His praise made me a little embarrassed. Even on my wedding day, when I was so nervous my palms were sweating, it was Fu Huaiji who secretly slipped me an apple. Don't be nervous. My brother will treat you well. Xiao Huan will definitely be happy. I clutched the apple tightly and nodded firmly. We'll be happy together. Now, because of my brother and my elder sister, he holds a grudge against me. But I was deceived too. I couldn't accept it. I had to make things clear with Fu Huaiji. But he was gone. And I never saw him again. The servants said, "The young master is studying and doesn't want to be disturbed. Madam, please come back later." What bad luck, the young master has gone out. And no one knows when he'll return. The young master isn't here. Madam, please go back. I was turned away time and time again. Finally, one of the servants couldn't bear it anymore and whispered a hint to me. "Madam, why not take a stroll over to the eldest young master's courtyard?" Although Fu Jingxing was busy with official duties and rarely at the mansion, I had always avoided crossing paths with him. My husband had become my brother-in-law. And it was all my own sister's doing. Who wouldn't hate that? I hesitated for a moment but still went over. Only then did I realize that during all those days Fu Huaiji refused to see me. He was at my sister's place, playing chess and strumming the zither with her, taking Fu Jingxing's place to keep her company. Why did everyone have to deceive me? I forcefully suppressed the fury boiling inside me. That evening, I went to Fu Huaiji's study again. He still refused to see me. The anger finally erupted. I couldn't tell if it was grievance or rage. But I grabbed an axe and split open that tightly shut door. In a torrent of words, I spilled the entire plan of my brother and sister swapping husbands. I looked at Fu Huaiji with excitement, expecting him to be just as furious as I was. But he just stood there, calmly watching me finish my outburst, and said, "You drugged me, crawled into my bed, and betrayed my brother. And now you want to slander your own brother and sister. Mu Huan, you disgust me." I froze. Suddenly, I understood why my sister always liked to look at me that way. Desperately chasing something you can never have. It really is nothing but a joke. 04 Fu Huaiji resented me for the marriage swap. And I resented him for being blind to the truth. We lived under the same roof but rarely saw each other. Even when he was drunk and performed his marital duties, he would mutter resentfully, "Why won't you look at me anymore?" I knew he was doing it deliberately to spite me. In retaliation, I bit down hard on his shoulder. What I got in return was him gripping my waist tightly, without a shred of tenderness. After each encounter, the pain would linger for 2 or 3 days. As time passed, my sister heard that Fu Huaiji and I weren't getting along. Acting as the eldest sister-in-law, she came to offer her hypocritical advice. "I know you hate me, but what's done is done. Just live well with Fu Huaiji, and I'll be able to rest easy." I kept my face cold and said nothing, but I had to admit, life was long, and fighting with Fu Huaiji for the rest of it was too exhausting. Clumsily, I learned to cook an evening meal, hoping to talk things over with him. Fu Huaiji agreed to come back early. A faint, unspoken hope stirred in my heart, but when night came and he arrived, he yanked me out of the room and threw me onto the ground. It was the dead of winter, and I was wearing thin clothes. The snow sent a shiver through me. I looked up abruptly and met his blazing, furious eyes. "Why did you make Yuer miscarry?" I was stunned. "I didn't. Yuer told me everything. Today, she only went to your room, in the Fu mansion. Who else would wish her ill besides you? Kneel here and reflect until she wakes up." Fu Huaiji ordered his attendants to watch over me as I was punished. Then he hurried off to my sister's courtyard. He wouldn't believe a single one of my explanations. Yet he swallowed every vague word my sister said. The cold creeping up from my knees sent my heart sinking into an icy abyss. Something was flowing out of me. A sharp pain tore through my abdomen. I stumbled and collapsed into the snow, too weak to even get up. Then I caught a glimpse of a familiar figure in the moonlight. My brother had come to the Fu mansion after hearing the news of my sister's miscarriage. Instinctively, I grabbed the hem of his robe. "It hurts. Brother. It hurts." My brother crouched down. I struggled to lift my face, imagining that I could throw myself into his arms like when I was a child, seeking comfort. But he pulled my hand away, his eyes icy cold. "Mu Huan, why are you so ungrateful? Fu Huaiji gives you a life of luxury, and you still bully your sister." He thought I was living well in the Fu mansion. When his gaze swept over the blood on my body, my brother shook his head. Your knees are injured from kneeling, you brought this on yourself. Alright, stop blocking the way. I need to go see your sister. It's not my knees. Before I could finish, my brother had already hurried away. My mouth hung open. The biting wind scraped against me. Why? Why did everyone believe my sister and not me? I fainted from the pain. When I woke up, I was in my room. Alone. From outside the door came the sound of a lock clicking, followed by Fu Huaiji's cold voice. From now on, Mu Huan is confined to her room. Don't let her near you or anymore. My brother sighed. It's my fault for spoiling her, making her capable of such a vicious act. I have some ginseng at my place. I'll trouble you to fetch it later to help you recover. On the same day, both of us had miscarriages, but no one knew that I, too, had lost a child. It was as if I had been forgotten here. Morning and evening, a servant would bring me a meal, but I had no appetite. I just stared at the ceiling, day after day. I lost track of how much time had passed. All I remembered was that I started coughing and running a high fever. As the days wore on, a creeping exhaustion settled over me. That was when Fu Huaiji, for the first time in what felt like ages, stepped into my room. He reeked of alcohol. Sister-in-law, happy birthday. Watching you lean against my brother, do you have any idea how it tears my heart apart? It struck me then, like a cold splash of water, today was also my birthday. No wonder I'd heard such a commotion outside this morning. They were celebrating my sister's birthday. I wanted to push Fu Huaiji away, to tell him I wasn't Mu Yuer, but I'd already lost the last of my strength. Even now, thinking back on my past life, my throat still clenched with bitterness. In this life, I didn't want to set foot in the Fu residence again. Neither Fu Huaiji nor Fu Jingxing, I wanted none of them. Let them fight over my sister. I'd let them have their way. I tore the betrothal certificate in my hands to shreds. Originally, I'd planned to go to the Fu mansion to exchange the documents and break off the engagement with Fu Jingxing. Then, I'd return to my hometown in Suzhou to tend my parents' graves. I never expected Fu Huaiji would come to our estate first to exchange the papers. Fine. Then, I'd find another excuse to visit. As I mulled over a pretext, I left the garden, and unexpectedly ran straight into my brother and sister. 05 Fu Huaiji wasn't with them, he must have left. My brother pressed his lips together. Xiao Huan, your sister and I have something to tell you. Fu Huaiji kept pushing me today to set a wedding date, so your sister could marry him early. I should have agreed, but your sister is already pregnant with Fu Jingxing's child. She can't marry Fu Huaiji anymore. My heart jolted. I looked at my sister's belly. So that was it, at this time in my past life. She'd already been intimate with Fu Jingxing. My sister's eyes welled up with tears. Xiao Huan, I didn't mean to steal your fiancé, but I couldn't help my feelings. Fu Jingxing loves me too. If Fu Huaiji finds out, he'll make a huge scene. Then my reputation will be ruined, and Fu Jingxing won't be able to marry me because of the gossip. The only way for me to escape Fu Huaiji and marry Fu Jingxing smoothly is if you insist on getting married on the same day as me and we swap sedan chairs. So that was their real purpose in coming to me. In this life, Fu Huaiji was breathing down their necks. My brother had no excuse to delay the wedding, so he'd just laid his cards on the table, hoping to make me give up on Fu Jingxing and force me to cooperate. My brother tried to persuade me. Your sister has never asked us for anything since she was little. This is her only wish. Just let her and Fu Jingxing be together. My nails dug into my palm. My throat tightened as I asked, dripping with sarcasm, and what about me, brother? Have you thought about what happens when everyone mistakes me for the scheming woman who stole her sister's man? And what about Fu Huaiji? If he's tricked into this marriage, do you think he'll let me off? My brother frowned and then spouted the same absurd, love-blind nonsense from my past life. Fu Jingxing doesn't love you. Why force it? My sister tugged at his sleeve. Forget it, brother. Xiao Huan doesn't want to let go, and I don't want to push her. Let me take the blame. I'd rather not marry at all. I'll stay home with you and the child forever. My brother's face twisted with pity. I let out a cold laugh. Sister, you're the one who had an affair with my fiancé. I haven't even cried yet. So why are you playing the victim? Smack. My brother's slap sent my head snapping to the side. She's your sister. How dare you speak to her like that? After the shout, my brother froze, staring at his own hand. Then he turned his back. His voice turned icy. I've spoiled you too much. You've forgotten your place. This is a notice, not a discussion. If you don't agree, don't even think about leaving this house for the rest of your life. My sister shot me another mocking glance, and my brother ordered the servants to guard the courtyard gate, keeping me under watch. A scene so painfully familiar sent a chill through my bones. I couldn't even bother with the sting on my face. I refused to repeat the same mistakes. I went back to my room, shut the door, and climbed out the back window. I'd been climbing trees and riding horses since I was a child. This wall was nothing to me. I crept along the eaves, moving carefully. As I passed the front hall, I suddenly locked eyes with a pair of dark, inky pupils. Fu Huaiji stood under the eaves. Our gazes met. He hadn't left. 06 across from Fu Huaiji stood my brother. He'd seated Fu Huaiji in the front hall for tea. I froze above them, not daring to move a muscle, afraid he'd give away my position. But Fu Huaiji looked away, as if he hadn't seen me. He handed a talisman to my brother. Please give this to Yuer for me, sir. I've heard this charm can protect one's health and safety. I hope she gets better soon so we can marry. The talisman was a gleaming gold. I recognized it. It came from the temple on the outskirts of the capital. Not long ago, Fu Huaiji had mentioned it to me, saying that since I was always bouncing around and getting hurt, he'd get me a safety charm for my birthday this year to keep me safe. But in my past life, I never got it, even until my dying breath. I thought he'd forgotten. Turns out he'd already gotten it. He just didn't want to give it to me. Now he was giving it to my sister, hoping she'd marry him in good health. I let out a bitter laugh. I heard my brother pretend to hesitate. I want Yuer to marry soon too. But Xiao Huan has been spoiled rotten. She insists on getting married the same day as her sister. Yuer dotes on her and agreed. So either General Fu moves up his wedding date, or we stick to the original plan and let them both marry on the same day. Fu Huaiji refused without a second thought. I don't agree. Mu Huan seems to have some designs on me. I don't want her to ruin yours and my wedding. My brother quickly replied. That's easy. I have a way to make Xiao Huan behave. On the wedding day, we'll lock her door and put something in her wine. She won't cause any trouble. It was the exact same method he'd used to deal with me and Fu Huaiji in my past life. Fu Huaiji suddenly looked up. 07 Fu Huaiji's voice dropped a notch. Hoarser now. Mu Huan is your own sister. Sir, can you really bring yourself to do this to her? My brother realized he'd slipped up and gave an awkward laugh. I'm left with no choice. If I don't, Xiao Huan will just cause more trouble. So, about the wedding date, what do you want to do, Fu? He asked knowingly. Where is Mu Huan now? I want to ask her something before we settle the date. My brother said. She's in her courtyard. I'll have someone take you there. Fu Huaiji's gaze swept subtly in my direction. A clear warning in his eyes. He was telling me to go back and wait for him. If I didn't, he'd have my brother catch me right then and there. And with my brother's methods, escaping would be even harder. My chest felt like it was stuffed with a lump of air I couldn't exhale. Frustrated, I turned back and crept to my room. Not long after, Fu Huaiji walked in alone. He was studying me. We had known each other for years. He understood me well enough to have guessed that I, too, had been reborn. He asked bluntly, the one who drugged me in my past life wasn't you. It was Mu Zhao. Why did he do it? Or was it because you ordered him to? A single sentence stirred up the lingering resentment from my past life. A bitterness filled my mouth, making my tongue feel numb. Even though I hadn't stood in the way of him returning the betrothal gifts, even though my elder brother had personally confessed to the poisoning, he still didn't believe me. He still couldn't accept that my sister didn't love him. Suddenly, I no longer wanted to just walk away. I wanted, for once, to deceive them too. If you promise to let me marry on the same day as my sister, I'll tell you. Fu Huaiji let out a cold laugh. You think I'd give you the chance to marry me again? Mu Huan. If you keep pestering me, I'll have my brother call off your engagement. You can't manage accounts or run a household. You know nothing of music, chess, calligraphy, or painting. A woman like you would be too ashamed to even be a concubine. I was stunned. Suddenly, I remembered my childhood. The tutors my elder brother had hired for my sister. He had been strict with her, wanting her to be well prepared for marriage so she wouldn't be looked down upon. Indulging me was because my brother didn't care how I would fare in my future husband's home. From the very beginning, my brother had loved my sister more. Some things, looking back, were so clear now. My nose stung with emotion. I lifted my face. Rest assured, Master Fu, in this life, I will never pester you or marry you. When my red-rimmed eyes met his, Fu Huaiji's gaze flickered. You'd better not try any tricks. He turned and left. My heart was uneasy. I didn't know if that counted as his agreement. I began to organize my gold, silver, and valuables. Just moments ago, I had only thought about escaping quickly, nearly forgetting the most important travel money. Creak, the door was pushed open again. I scrambled to stand up straight. My elder brother stood at the entrance, looking past me. Xiao Huan, why have you taken out all your jewelry? 08 I kept my head down. Fu Huaiji was just here. He asked if I was short on wedding jewelry. I was checking what styles I still needed. After all, Fu Huaiji had told my brother earlier that he had something to ask me. My brother didn't think much of it. He does care for you. Your brother doesn't want to confine you. But your sister is pregnant with Fu Jingxing's child. The two of them are in love. If you force yourself into that marriage, you'll only end up hurt. Fu Huaiji was your brother-in-law. But that was in the past. You two spent so many years together. He does have a place for you in his heart. Otherwise, why would he care about your wedding, and even change the date just because you threw a tantrum about marrying on the same day? What else did you talk about? My brother's probing seemed casual, but I knew he was worried I might tell Fu Huaiji the truth. Inside, I felt a wave of relief. Fu Huaiji had agreed to the same-day wedding. That meant my plan could go ahead. I could leave the capital for good. I lowered my eyes. Besides the jewelry, I just tried to convince him to agree to the joint wedding. You and my sister were right. Fu Jingxing doesn't have me in his heart. Instead of forcing it, it's better to choose someone else. Fu Huaiji, I know him well enough. My brother finally smiled a genuine smile. Ah, you. I'm glad you've come to your senses. You used to say you liked Fu Huaiji. In a way, your sister has helped you fulfill that. But that was a childish, thoughtless remark made when I didn't understand what a marriage contract meant. As I grew up, those words had long since faded away. I remained silent. Having achieved his goal, my brother didn't linger. He couldn't wait to go tell my sister the good news. But he didn't remove the servants guarding the courtyard gate. In the end, he still didn't trust me. I didn't mention it either. The next day, discussions began about the wedding banquet details. Although Fu Jingxing had returned from the frontier, he was busy with official duties. He left all the wedding arrangements to Fu Huaiji. He came to the mansion frequently, but he no longer brought me treats and trinkets like before. What used to be shared between my sister and me was now hers alone. In the past, I would have thrown a tantrum. Now, I avoided Fu Huaiji. Even if we crossed paths, I would step aside first. But Fu Huaiji grabbed my arm. He handed me a box of pastries. We're going to be family from now on. There's no need to make things too awkward. As long as you stay well behaved, I will respect you as my sister-in-law. I didn't take the box. No need. It's better for us to keep our distance. He looked up, a hint of confusion in his eyes at my clear boundary setting. I simply walked past him and returned to my room. Finally, the wedding day arrived. The Mu mansion was brightly lit, bustling with unprecedented excitement. But I wasn't wearing a wedding gown. I had given most of my gold, silver, and valuables to my personal maid. She would wear the veil and marry in my place. I changed into plain clothes and, while everyone was gathered in the front courtyard, slipped out through the back gate, thinking of how my brother and sister would look when they saw the maid. I felt as if I could breathe a little easier. From now on, there would be no more Mu Huan, the younger sister of Lord Mu. Only Xiao Huan, the orphan girl guarding her parents' graves. 09 According to custom, the elder brother had to see his sister off to the wedding. After seeing off Mu Yuer, Mu Zhao came to fetch Mu Huan. Watching the girl emerge from the room, walking cautiously because of the veil over her head, Mu Zhao instinctively went to support her, whispering, Fu Huaiji is guarding the bridal sedan. It's not easy to switch people. Once you reach the Fu mansion, your sister will find a chance to swap with you. Your wedding gown and veil are identical. No one will notice. The hand on his arm trembled slightly. In just a few days, Mu Huan's skin had become a bit rougher. He had been too strict with her this time. Mu Zhao sighed. Don't worry. Your brother is here. Nothing will go wrong. When you come back for the home visit, I'll have the kitchen make all your favorite dishes. The Fu mansion isn't like home. Once you're married, you need to rein in your willfulness. If Fu Huaiji dares to bully you, your brother will surely seek justice for you. I won't be confused again. After all, she was the little sister he had watched grow up. He couldn't help but say a few more words. As they stepped out of the mansion gate, Fu Jingxing still hadn't arrived. Fu Huaiji said, My brother was summoned to the palace by the emperor at the last minute. He asked me to pick up the bride for him first. He'll be back soon. Mu Zhao felt a pang of discomfort. On such an important day, how could Fu Jingxing let Fu Huaiji take his place? And Fu Huaiji was also puzzled. In his past life, his brother hadn't gone to the palace. Was this a change brought about by his and Mu Huan's rebirth? Catching sight of Mu Huan's clenched hands, Fu Huaiji remembered the previous life. She had been just as nervous then. He never imagined that back then, she had harbored such a twisted scheme, forcing herself into his life by marrying him. Every time he avoided Mu Huan, watching her sink into disappointment again and again, only to wither away and die young. It gnawed at him, but he couldn't cross that line. She was the one who drugged him, swapped the bride, and tore him apart from Mu Yuer. If only those misunderstandings had never happened. Fu Huaiji hesitated for a moment, then grabbed an apple for Mu Huan. Don't be nervous. I keep my word. As long as you don't stir up trouble in the Fu household, I'll protect you like I always did. He swung onto his horse, signaling the bridal procession to move forward. The moment they arrived at the Fu mansion, a servant rushed in with urgent news. Second young master. I went to the palace to find General Fu, but the guards there said the emperor never summoned him. Fu Huaiji froze. He hastily ordered men to search for Fu Jingxing's whereabouts. But as the auspicious hour approached, there was still no sign of him. Guests had already started whispering among themselves. Why had his brother lied? With one groom missing, Fu Huaiji had no choice but to go tell Mu Huan. My brother's gone. He seems to be backing out of the wedding. But don't worry. If it comes to it, I'll take you as a secondary wife and finish the ceremony first. What did you say? The bridal veil was yanked off in a flash. But it wasn't Mu Huan. It was Mu Yuer. Fu Huaiji's eyes went wide as he tore off his own bride's veil. It wasn't Mu Huan either. It was her maid. The girl fell to her knees in terror. Forgive me, my lords. I was ordered by the second miss to take her place in the wedding. Mu Zhao's face twisted with rage as he blurted out. This is outrageous. She runs off. And now how is Yuer supposed to marry Fu Jingxing? Mu Yuer scrambled to cover Mu Zhao's mouth. But it was too late. Fu Huaiji had heard everything. His face drained of color. You were supposed to marry my brother. The one you love. Isn't it me? Mu Yuer's guilt kept her silent, unable to utter a word. Suddenly, Fu Huaiji remembered the day Mu Huan had burst into his study, spilling out all those truths. He had thought they were lies she'd made up to drive a wedge between him and Mu Yuer. So, it wasn't Mu Huan who swapped the betrothal cards, drugged the wine, and tore them apart. He had been wrong about her all along. A crushing weight slammed into his chest, like a giant hand squeezing the air from his lungs, leaving him gasping. Mu Zhao stepped forward awkwardly. Fu Huaiji. Let me explain, *bam. Fu Huaiji's fist connected with his face in a brutal punch. Why did you lie to me? Why did you pin all the blame on Xiao Huan? Isn't she your own sister? How could you be so cruel to her? Because of you. I've wronged her my entire life. Mu Zhao couldn't make sense of Fu Huaiji's words. He tried to ask, but Fu Huaiji's blows only grew heavier. As his consciousness blurred, he glimpsed a completely different wedding. Mu Huan hadn't run away. She had locked herself in the bridal chamber. Mu Zhao watched like a ghost as Mu Huan was ignored, humiliated, lectured by Mu Yuer, and dragged into the snow to kneel as punishment. A dull roar filled his ears. Shouldn't Xiao Huan have been happy? Every time he visited the Fu mansion to see Yuer, she always said Fu Huaiji treated Mu Huan well. Why was this happening? When he saw someone carry Mu Huan back to her room, and a physician came to say she had caught a chill from the snow, suffered a miscarriage, and ruined her health, Mu Zhao remembered everything. With the last of his strength, he grabbed Fu Huaiji by the throat. Xiao Huan didn't die from a cold. It was the child. The child destroyed her body. And you tortured my sister to death. Fu Huaiji froze. What child? The child you had with her. 10 near the city gates. I overheard people gossiping about the Fu household. The Fu and Mu families are the laughingstock of the night. The second miss had a maid take her place, and the eldest tried to secretly marry her brother-in-law, with Mu Zhao actually agreeing to it. Lord Mu spent years building a good name through charity, and his son just destroyed it all in one go. With the wedding called off, both families are scouring the city for Mu Huan. She stirred up this mess. If they catch her, she'll be skinned alive. My heart shot into my throat. I had the maid replace me as the bride, thinking I'd get a bit of revenge by fooling them before I left. I never imagined it would enrage my brother so much. Remembering how he drugged me in my past life and locked me up in this one, I panicked. I pulled on a veiled hat and hurried toward the gates, only to find the curfew had already begun. The gates were sealed, and no one was allowed in or out. In the distance, I heard the thunder of hooves. The Mu family was searching for me. Cold sweat beaded on my palms. I hesitated, wondering if I should hide, when a carriage pulled up beside me. Miss, are you trying to leave the city? The curtain lifted. Inside sat a man in a bright red wedding robe, with brows like distant mountains and eyes as cold as ice. It was General Fu Jingxing, my former fiancé. He didn't recognize me through the veiled hat. What was he doing here? I nodded, lowering my voice. I just received word that my mother is gravely ill. I need to return to my hometown to see her. Fu Jingxing replied calmly. I happen to be heading out as well. I'll give you a ride. He was the type, cold on the outside, warm on the inside. In my past life, I'd heard how he often helped villagers farm and repair houses while stationed at the border. After I married into the Fu family, I avoided meeting him, but occasionally, I'd overhear him advising Fu Huaiji. Since you're married, be kind to Xiao Huan. If you don't like her, just give her a letter of divorce and let her go. Each time, Fu Huaiji would sneer. She schemed her way into marrying me. Why would she ever leave? Besides, she can't do anything. Where would she even go? Fu Jingxing would fall silent. Then he'd order his men to send me some of the silk brocade he'd brought back. Always in my favorite colors. But in my past life, I thought that favor was just the kindness of a brother-in-law. So I never accepted anything from Fu Jingxing. I just handed off to the servants. Later, when I was kneeling in the snow, the pain blurring my vision, it was Fu Jingxing who carried me back to my room and called for a physician. That was the first time he ever lost his temper. Miscarriage? Are Fu Huaiji and Mu Zhao blind and deaf? They didn't even know she was pregnant. Go tell them now. But the servants. Whispers reached my ears. Fu Huaiji and Mu Zhao were by my sister's bedside, one coaxing her to drink medicine, the other trying to cheer her up. I grabbed Fu Jingxing's sleeve with what little strength I had. Don't bother. I destroyed your child. Why are you helping me? You wouldn't do something like that. 7 words. They made my eyes burn. Who would have thought that? In the end, the only one who believed in me was my former fiancé. And then, I completely lost consciousness. During those days when Fu Huaiji confined me to the house, I still heard news of him getting into a violent fight with Fu Jingxing. Fu Huaiji said one thing. She is my wife. You have no business meddling. That shut Fu Jingxing up. But after that, whenever the servants came to deliver meals, they would always bring me a tonic. Unfortunately, my heart meridian was already damaged back then. I had no will to live. I never drank it, time and time again, letting my body waste away. The carriage was cramped. I felt a bit suffocated sitting inside, looking at Fu Jingxing across from me. My heart was a tangled mess of emotions. His kindness to me was real. His love for my older sister was also real. They had even secretly had a child together. Just then, the carriage stopped on the official road. Before getting off, I couldn't help but ask, "Young master, you're wearing a wedding robe. You should be getting married. Why aren't you accompanying your bride on your wedding night, but instead leaving the city?" Fu Jingxing lowered his head and spoke softly. The one I was to marry was not the right person, so I chose not to marry at all. My heart skipped a beat. What did he mean by that? But then he continued, "Miss, the night is deep and the dew is heavy. I wish you a smooth journey." "Thank you." 11 I bought a horse and headed for Suzhou. My father used to be the prefect there. Later, he was promoted, and the whole family moved to the capital. Who would have thought that not long after, my mother would accidentally fall into the water and pass away? My father loved her deeply. Grief broke his body. His only dying wish was to be buried with my mother in her hometown. The old mansion was still there. If I cleaned it up, it would be livable. First, I bought incense, candles, and spirit money to go outside the city and pay respects to my parents. Seeing my parents' tombstones, the grievances accumulated over 2 lifetimes inexplicably surged into my heart. When my parents were alive, my elder brother was respectful and kind to me. How did he become like this once they were gone? Suddenly, I heard someone calling out, "Xiao Huan." I frantically wiped away my tears and turned around. A woman's face lit up with surprise. Beside her stood a gentle, warm young man. "Xiao Huan, I am your aunt, your mother's younger sister. I used to hold you when you were little. Do you remember?" My aunt affectionately took my hand. "I came to clean your parents' tombstones. I never expected to run into you. This is your cousin, Xiao Heng. Do you still remember him?" Xiao Heng clasped his hands in a polite bow, his eyes tender. "Long time no see, Xiao Huan." I nodded in acknowledgement. Of course, I remembered them. When I was young, my mother often took me to my aunt's house to play. I was the youngest in the family, and my aunt loved having a daughter. Both she and Xiao Heng doted on me especially. My aunt smiled and scolded me playfully. "You child, why didn't you tell me you were coming back to Suzhou? I could have had your cousin pick you up. Come on, let's go back and hold a welcome feast for you. From now on, you'll stay at your aunt's house." My aunt was so warm and insistent that I couldn't refuse. I had no choice but to follow them back to the Xiao residence. At the dinner table, my aunt kept piling meat onto my plate. "You were so chubby and cute when you were little. How did you get so thin now?" Xiao Heng also added food to my bowl. "I remember you used to love this taro and spare ribs. Eat more." So someone still remembered what I liked. I quickly lowered my head to eat, hiding the bitterness in my eyes. After the meal, my aunt had someone bring out 3 boxes. "These grapes have been chilled. They're nice and cool, perfect for this scorching heat. 1 box for each of us." I instinctively stepped back half a step. I wanted to refuse, but the boxes were already opened. The grapes in all 3 boxes were exactly the same size. Yet Xiao Heng pushed his box over to me. "These grapes are sweet. I don't really care for them, but girls usually love them. Eat more. If it's not enough, I'll go buy more. It only takes a moment." I reached out and picked up a grape. My mouth was filled with sweetness. The other box was also sweet and rich. But at this moment, in my past life, my elder brother chose to mess up the next time, rather than bother to buy another portion. I shook my head with a wry smile. My aunt arranged for me to stay in the sunniest courtyard of the Xiao residence. It was warm and cozy, as if it could drive away all the chill. The next day, Xiao Heng took me sightseeing in Suzhou. The day after that, my aunt accompanied me shopping. buying me rouge, powder, silk skirts, and pearl hairpins. She picked out everything I liked. Your mother is gone now, so just think of me as your real mother, and Xiaohang as your real brother. Later, Xiaohang was carrying a huge pile of silk-wrapped boxes, weakly pleading, "Mother, Xiaohuan, my arms are about to fall off. Can't we just come back and buy more tomorrow?" My aunt brushed him off. "Just one more thing." Xiaohang looked wronged. "You said the exact same thing half an hour ago." Xiaohuan, did you hear someone talking?" I couldn't help but laugh. Gradually, I found myself smiling more and more at the Xiao residence. It felt like this was my second home. Someone cared. Someone paid attention. Good food and fun things. My aunt treated us equally. She never messed up or got things wrong. But Xiaohang would always give me his share. As if he felt it wasn't enough. He would always stuff an extra wad of silver notes into my hand. "Buy whatever you like. Don't worry about the money." I felt embarrassed and tried to refuse. Xiaohang gently ruffled my hair. "I'm your elder brother. Isn't it only natural for a brother to dote on his sister and be good to her?" I clutched the silver notes and couldn't help but ask, "What if you had two sisters? Would you treat them the same?" He looked puzzled. "Of course. Why wouldn't I? Isn't the other one also a sister?" But some people see their other sister as an enemy. That day, it was the 15th of July. I went to pay respects to my parents at their graves. But someone had already arrived before me. He was pulling out weeds. It was my elder brother. I hadn't seen him in over 2 months. He looked haggard. His right leg seemed injured, unable to bear his weight. He limped, kneeling on the ground. He was sobbing uncontrollably. "I'm sorry, Mother and Father. Xiaohuan has gone missing. Your son still hasn't found her. Can you please help me?" Not wanting to see my elder brother again, I quietly backed away, trying to leave. But I unluckily stepped on a dry twig. Snap. My elder brother instinctively turned his head. 12 Xiaohuan. My elder brother practically crawled and stumbled over to me. Unconcealable surprise shone in his eyes. "Mother and Father have answered our prayers. They really have. Xiaohuan, where have you been all this time? Do you know how worried your elder brother has been? Come, elder brother will take you home." Trembling, he reached out to take my hand. I instinctively dodged. My elder brother's voice became even gentler. "Don't be afraid. Elder brother won't blame you for having the maid take your place in the wedding, and I won't punish you for running away from home." I dreamed of past lives, and only then did I realize how much I had neglected you. I truly didn't know you endured so much suffering in the Fu manor. Even the day Fu Huaiji made you kneel as punishment, I foolishly thought your knee was just injured. When we get home, I'll properly nourish your body. I won't let you suffer anymore. I froze. Shocked that my elder brother would dream of the past, Xiaohang walked over, carrying tools. Today, he was accompanying me to sweep our parents' graves. He'd been delayed parking the carriage. Who would have thought my brother had already finished everything? Spotting my brother, Xiaohang paused in surprise. My brother was equally startled. "Cousin Xiao, why are you here?" Could it be that Xiaohuan has been staying at the Xiao residence all this time since leaving home? Xiaohang, who had once been closest to my brother as a child, now looked at him with utter disgust. His tone harsh. "None of your damn business. Xiaohuan, let's go home first. We'll come back later to pay respects to your parents. There's a disgusting fly buzzing around here." I nodded, dazed. "All right, elder brother." At those words, my brother's head snapped up. "What did you call him? Elder brother? Is something wrong?" My brother grew frantic. "I am your elder brother. Xiaohang is just your cousin." I must have been confused. Those familiar words fell on my ears, and my brother stiffened for a moment. But he asked hopefully, "So, can we go home now?" I turned around, facing our parents' gravestone. "Then let our parents bear witness. From today onward, I sever all ties as your sister." Mu Zhao's face went pale. Why, Xiaohuan, don't you want your brother anymore?" "No, I don't. From now on, you can be Mu Yuer's brother and hers alone." I walked away without looking back. On the way back to the Xiao residence, Xiao Heng muttered under his breath, I can't believe the rumors in the capital are true. Fu Huaiji broke one of Mu Zhao's legs on their wedding night, and Mu Zhao crippled one of Fu Huaiji's hands in return. What a mess of dogs biting dogs, all covered in fur. How does Mu Zhao still have the nerve to come find you? At that, Xiao Heng couldn't hold back his anger. He told you to give up your fiancé to Mu Yuer, always favored her over you, and was even stingy about buying extra grapes. Having a brother like that is a disgrace. And that Fu Huaiji, he's no good either. He got engaged to Mu Yuer, yet still sends people searching for you everywhere, pining after you. Shameless. I was stunned. Elder brother, how do you know all this? Since I came to Suzhou, I've never mentioned anything about the capital. Xiao Heng's eyes darted away. I just heard it somewhere. But no one outside the Mu family knows about the grapes. I feigned a threat. If you don't tell me, I won't call you elder brother anymore. No, don't. Xiao Heng panicked. He scratched his head. Actually, it was Fu Jingxing who wrote to me and mother about it. Fu Jingxing said you suffered a lot in the capital and would come to Suzhou. Mother and I guessed you'd definitely go to pay respects to our parents as soon as you returned. So we timed it. Ran into you at the cemetery. He told me not to say it was his information. So I kept it from you. I sat there, dazed, my thoughts in chaos. In this life, Fu Jingxing shouldn't know about my brother's favoritism. He must have been reborn too. But he liked my sister, why would he secretly help me? 13 I couldn't figure out Fu Jingxing's motives. And I didn't sleep well all night. Just as dawn broke, a servant reported that Mu Zhao had come to the residence. He'd visited the Xiao residence before, so knowing the location wasn't surprising. Not wanting him to disturb Auntie and Xiao Heng's rest, I went to the front hall to see him. Mu Zhao brought a lot of things. Grapes, fine silks and satins, hairpins and dangling ornaments. They were all my favorite colors and styles. Seeing me arrive, Mu Zhao seemed a bit nervous, treading carefully. Xiao Huan, look, these are all the things you like. I've tasted the grapes myself. They're big and sweet. Can you stop being angry with your brother? Sarcasm rose in my heart. So he did know what I liked. Is it because Mu Yuer isn't here that you don't get confused and forget things? Mu Zhao's face went pale, and he lowered his head. Mu Yuer was frail as a child, always sick. I got used to constantly worrying about her. Every time I forgot about you, I felt guilty too, afraid you'd be angry. So I pretended to be confused. But that doesn't mean I don't love you. Mu Yuer deceived me, saying you were doing well in the Fu manor. I've already punished her, locked her in the courtyard, so she can taste the suffering you endured. What good does that do? Even if Mu Yuer is confined, even if the world calls her a scheming woman who stole her sister's fiancé, that's just her deserved retribution. But what did I ever do wrong to have to bear all this in my past life? I called for a servant. Escort Lord Mu out. If he comes again in the future, don't let him in. Hearing this, Mu Zhao stumbled. Xiao Huan, I'm your brother. How can you not acknowledge me and call me Lord Mu? His voice faded as the servants shoved him out of the Xiao residence. The news of Mu Zhao's visit still reached Auntie. She snorted coldly. If your parents knew what he'd done, they'd beat him half to death, or cripple him. If he insists on lurking outside, let him. We'll go stay at the estate. There are plenty of shops there, and I can teach you how to keep accounts and manage things. From now on, you'll live your own life. Your aunt and cousin won't worry about you. Warmth filled my heart, and I agreed. But that afternoon, the servant guarding the gate reported that Mu Zhao had been beaten up and dumped in the outskirts. The attackers were several men, utterly lacking in decency. They even targeted his good leg. Auntie grabbed Xiao Heng. Your methods are too underhanded. Xiao Heng looked confused. It wasn't me. Then who could it be? Probably one of Mu Zhao's enemies. Still, Mu Zhao's departure was a good thing. I went out to buy some supplies for the estate, but I kept feeling like someone was watching me. As I turned a corner, I tested a name. Fu Jingxing. Xiao Huan. It's not him. A familiar voice rang out. I stiffly turned around. 14 Fu Huaiji stood in the shadow of a tree. his expression dark. His right hand hung limp at his side. Just as Xiao Heng had said, crippled by Mu Zhao. He stepped slowly into the light. A gloom lingered in his brow. Like a ghost come to claim a soul. You disappeared for over 2 months. And I've been fighting with Mu Zhao for just as long. I heard he ran to Suzhou. So I followed, thinking I'd keep fighting him. Only then did I realize he was guarding the Shao residence. Calling out your name over and over. He found you. But he didn't tell me. Fu Huaiji's voice carried a hint of grievance. Why did you think I was my brother? My brother's been missing for over 2 months too. Have you been with him all this time? I frowned. Fu Jingxing had also left the capital. Suddenly, a tug at my sleeve. Fu Huaiji grabbed my arm, his eyes shimmering with tears. I'm sorry, Xiaowan. On our wedding day, I finally learned the truth. The ones who lied to me were Mu Zhao and Mu Yuer, not you. When their scheme fell apart, Mu Yuer still thought she could marry Fu Jingxing, claiming she was pregnant. But I had a physician check her pulse. Her body was too weak. She could never bear children. In our past life, Mu Zhao knew this all along, yet he still conspired with her to deceive you, just to hide her infertility and keep her from being looked down upon. I killed our child for a fake pregnancy. A ringing filled my ears. I forgot to breathe. Stunned. I couldn't believe Mu Zhao would go that far for Mu Yuer. He'd rather let me bear the blame for poisoning his sister's child than let anyone gossip about her inability to conceive. Fu Huaiji's voice cracked. Back then, I didn't know you were pregnant. I lived a lifetime of regret. Heaven showed mercy, letting me start over to make amends. After you disappeared, I finally understood my own heart. Xiaowan, I fell in love with you during those days when I was taking care of you for Fu Jingxing. Let's start over. Okay. Trembling, he pulled out a safety charm. The birthday gift I owe you. I closed my eyes, swallowing all the bitterness. Mr. Fu, you've got the date wrong. Today isn't my birthday. And what's past is past. From now on, let's each walk our own path. In my past life, I hated him for a lifetime and died young from the pain. This life, I've tricked them once too. Let's call it even. I don't want to walk the same road again. I just want to live. But Fu Huaiji wouldn't let go. Instead, he gripped tighter. You're my wife. In our past life, you were. In this life, you should be too. Xiaowan, let me spend my whole life repaying you. He cornered me, refusing to budge an inch. Furious, I raised my hand to slap him. Thud. Someone kicked Fu Huaiji away before I could. Xiao Heng's eyes blazed with rage. In broad daylight, you dare harass my sister. I'll beat the shamelessness out of you. He'd trained in martial arts since childhood. Fu Huaiji was no match for him. Pinned to the ground, Fu Huaiji took a brutal beating. Blood splattered with every punch. Afraid Xiao Heng would kill him and ruin his own life, I rushed to pull him off. Fu Huaiji coughed up blood, but he still smiled. I knew it. Xiaowan, you still love me. You can't bear to see me die. Brother, are you okay? Don't throw your life away for someone like him. It's not worth it. I rubbed Xiao Heng's reddened hands. Fu Huaiji's smile froze. Someone like him, in Xiao Huan's eyes. I'm just someone like that. I looked down at him coldly. Fu Huaiji, I'm your wife's sister. How can you treat me this way? Don't you owe my sister an apology? Clutching at me like this. Shameless and desperate, you disgust me. Fu Huaiji's face went pale. The words he'd once thrown at me now echoed back, sharp as knives, cutting into his own heart. I left with Xiao Heng. Xiao Heng was still fuming. One after another, like dogs sniffing out a scent, they all come running to Suzhou. Brother, weren't you at home helping mother pack? How did you know where I was? Xiao Heng sighed. I knew you'd ask. Actually, Fu Jingxing sent me a message, telling me to come save you. He's been in Suzhou this whole time. He escorted you out and never left. But for some reason, he won't see you. Maybe because he fell for your sister and can't face you. So, that day outside the city, Fu Jingxing had recognized me. I clutched my handkerchief. Brother, can you arrange a meeting for me? I have some things I need to ask Fu Jingxing. 15 I thought meeting Fu Jingxing would be complicated. But that night, Xiao Heng said he was waiting for me at a tavern. When I arrived, Fu Jingxing was already there. He sat quietly, sipping tea. The table was covered in my favorite dishes. I got straight to the point. General Fu, why did you secretly help me and then avoid me? Fu Jingxing pressed his lips together. Because it was your wish. To never marry into the Fu family again. To never return to the Mu family. In our past life. The day you had a fever. You kept repeating that. I wanted to grant it for you. I tightened my grip on the cup. No wonder he wrote to the Xiao family for me and saw me out of the city. Fu Jingxing answered my second question in a low voice. He said he wasn't avoiding me, he felt unworthy. In the past life, when Fu Jingxing returned to the bridal chamber, he found his bride had been swapped for Mu Yuer. Like me, he wanted to set things right. But his elder brother had drugged him beforehand. Helplessly, he ended up sleeping with Mu Yuer. Afterward, he confronted his brother. His brother told him that I loved Fu Huaiji. Fu Jingxing believed it. From then on, he rarely came home, unwilling to face his own younger brother. It wasn't until he heard about Fu Huaiji kneeling in punishment that he sensed something was wrong. But by then, it was too late. I didn't want to live anymore. So in this life, he helped me leave the capital. So in this life, he chose not to fight fate but to let me go. In our past life, whether I wanted it or not, my body betrayed you. And I failed to see through Mu Zhao's scheme in time. How could I have the face to show myself before you again? Fu Jingxing lowered his head, his smile bitter. I was lost in thought for a long time. I'd thought he and Mu Yuer were in love. But he, too, had been tricked and manipulated by his brother. If this were the old days, I would have told Fu Jingxing it was okay and stubbornly tried to rekindle our bond. Just like how I insisted on telling Fu Huaiji the truth about the switch. But after living one lifetime, I've learned fear. The brave, fearless Mu Huan had already died in that tiny room. Even if we forced ourselves together, every memory of the past life would be a thorn between us. It's better to let it end in regret. I stared at the tea before me, my eyes stinging from the steam. A handkerchief was handed to me. Fu Jingxing's gaze was soft. Don't cry. I couldn't be with you before. And now that I'm back in the capital, I can't protect you. That's my fault. Not yours. I'll take Fu Huaiji away. He won't bother you anymore. Mu Zhao has lost his official post. He won't be staying in Suzhou long. Xiao Heng and his wife are doing well. They've always thought of you. Why haven't you returned to Suzhou to see them? A man of few words. In this moment, grew verbose. Before leaving, Fu Jingxing draped a cloak over my shoulders. The night is deep and the dew heavy. The wind has picked up. Don't catch a chill. I suddenly remembered the day I was reborn, the biting wind that had pierced through me. Now, at last, someone stood in its way. Master Fu, I wish you a safe journey back to the capital. 16 The next day, I didn't see Fu Huaiji again. Xiao Heng told me Fu Jingxing had taken him away, planning to petition for a transfer to the frontier and throw him into the army. The frontier was harsh and cold. Fu Huaiji had grown up in the warmth of the capital, pampered and spoiled. He would surely suffer a great deal. I didn't dwell on it further. I set out for the estate with my stepmother and Xiao Heng. Halfway there, we were stopped by Mu Zhao. He was still nursing his injuries from the beating he'd taken last time, looking utterly wretched. Xiao Huan, he started, and I cut him off softly. Brother, do you love me? You knew my sister couldn't conceive, yet you went along with her scheme, framing me for a miscarriage, making me lose my child. Do you truly love me? Mu Zhao choked. He collapsed to the ground. You know everything. After Mu Yuer married Fu Jingxing, she was neglected day after day. She had no choice but to fake a pregnancy, hoping he'd treat her better. But Fu Jingxing didn't. He still ignored her. As the months approached when her belly would show, Mu Yuer feared she couldn't hide it, so she resorted to that scheme. At the time, I didn't know you were pregnant. In this life, I only lied to you about her pregnancy to get you to cooperate. But your brother loves you. He brought up the past. He knew I didn't like learning etiquette, so he never forced me. When I fell off a horse while learning to ride, he'd worry. But you love my sister more, don't you? I sneered at the now silent Mu Xiao. Brother, I'd rather you had ignored me from childhood, treated me poorly, than have you deceive me time and again, saying you loved me more. It's too disgusting. 17 After that day, Mu Xiao never appeared again. Maybe all his lies had been exposed, and he had no face to see me. Or maybe he was rushing back to the capital to salvage his official post. I didn't ask. I followed my stepmother to learn accounting. I opened a shop of my own. The next autumn, Xiaoheng placed third in the imperial examinations. My stepmother was too lazy to bother, so I went to the capital to see Xiaoheng in her place. The Mu residence had fallen into decline. As I passed the gate, I heard someone shrieking, "I just boiled this noodles. This one bowl. Brother, why did you have to spill it on the floor?" It was Mu Yuer. I'd heard that Mu Xiao's mind had become somewhat muddled. Sometimes he'd point at a grape and call out little sister. He'd mutter, "Give it to little sister first, give it to little sister first. And then it's not favoritism, it means I love her more." Just then, Mu Yuer turned and spotted me at the gate. The look in her eyes held surprise. And something else I didn't understand, regret. No longer the triumphant sneer of a victor. I didn't know what she was thinking. And I didn't want to know. I caught up with Xiaoheng. "Brother, come buy me some rouge and powder." "All right, whatever you say." The end.